See who pops in or pops up.
Greetings, everybody. I have dragged the internet, and I've dragged the wasteland of the internet and the digital divide. And you know what I found? Just me. Unfortunately for the rest of me specifically, I also found Maddy, who's and then has tried to rope me in and try. She's going to be the voice of reason today, all right, to prevent me from going off on the various stories that I don't have too many. But I the and I'm not going to do this story or pull it up, but I do have a question for you, right?
Hmm.
Um, or a thing about things going on right now, as you know, right? The work environment for artists is for especially is really going down,
Hmm.
right? There's just not that many jobs out there.
Nope.
All right. Now, before I give you my point of view on this, and let you respond to that, why don't you give me your point of view on where this is going and why this is happening and how do you look at it? And I realize it's kind of an open ended question. You don't have to delve into any kind of specifics or anything if you don't want to or anything.
Well, I mean, it's to me, it's diminishing for on the artist side of things and the writer side of things because AI seems to be taking over. Everywhere you look, you have, people plugging in certain parameters and stuff and AI spitting out art. You have websites that are offering an AI content writing business to where people don't have to write their own stories or articles anymore. And it's to me it's taking over, and this leads to less and less freelance people being hired, which hits a lot of people in that industry in the wallet, whether they're an artist or a freelance writer, because it's so much easier to plug in certain parameters in a machine if you know how to do that and it spit out what you want it to, than have to sit there and talk to somebody or screen people to find the one that you can work with that'll actually do the work that you want to do because you don't think you're capable of doing it one way or the other. And I can understand that point of view to a point. And because, I have certain pictures in my mind of what my characters in my novels and stories look like, and I can't draw worth a shit. And if I do draw something, it takes me all day, and it looks like somebody in middle school did it, and not a really good middle school artist either. I mean, it needs a lot of work. So but in my point of view is if I have enough money, then I'll look for an artist. But not everybody looks that way, and I think it started with the NFTs, and then it's just gone downhill from there with artificial intelligence and plugging things into the machine, so to speak.
Well, my I agree with you, but at the same time, I disagree with some of the comments that have been made. All right, and it's not comments that you made, but the comments that I've been hearing. All right, one of the comments that this person, one of the people that I follow, said was is that she said that art is underappreciated. All right, and I'm like, where do you come off making that statement? Okay, art is overappreciated. There's too much of it. All right, art hasn't been appreciated since they started putting three basketballs in a tank and somebody paid $100,000 for it. Okay,
Mm.
or a guy sits up there and just, what was it, 2 years ago? 2 years ago, he sold space. Okay,
Let us not forget the
he
duct
had
tape banana to a wall.
that a crucifix in a jar of urine. This stuff has been out there for a long time. That's not your expression. Your personal expression, in my opinion, is an art. Okay,
Mm.
just because you have a personal expression of things, all right, doesn't make it art any more than someone who sings a lyric or a limerick, okay, with a gravelly voice like I have. It's like two cats wailing on a wall. Okay, that isn't art either. Okay, and it's the same thing that I've always had with some of the other things when people talk. In order to have something that's called I call art, you have to start with something I call talent,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
My view, right? And there are people that can draw. I'm not one of them. All right, I've met some of them. All right, I had a guy who was he was at a drafting table. All right, because that's what his work did. But he was a great artist, and I tried to explain to him one day. This is back in the '80s, right? I tried to explain to him I can't do that kind of stuff, and he's like, "Oh no, ever on." I'm like, "No, no, no, you can't." Right? And he goes, "Here,
Yeah.
here, let me show you how to do it." Right? And remember, this is a full drafting table, right?
Yeah.
And so he had a sheet of paper up there, and he put took his pencil out, put a dot on one end of one end, the other end, put a dot on the other end. It was about a yard apart, right? These two dots, right?
Mhm.
And then he drew a straight line, right, just like that.
Yeah.
See, that's a straight line. I said, do you, okay, do you think I could do that? He's like, yeah, oh yeah, everybody could do it. I said, you're out of your mind.
Right?
I tried to draw. like, now, like any other talent, okay, to become better at it, you got to practice it, right? I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
That there's work in that and things like
Yeah.
that. But this guy could draw and everything else, and of course that's when things were just moving into the digital drawing and drawing
Yeah.
age and everything else. And he had some problems actually adjusting to the fact that they wanted him to use the computer rather than just
Yeah.
freehand, right? So they ended up actually replacing him with another guy who. But they're both of them were great artists, but
Mhm.
they didn't have the understanding of what art really is. But it also goes back to something else. There are people now that are, and I realize I'm kind of sound like I'm just over talking here. There was a person who just
You?
recently sued, and that's what I want. You have more than carte blanche to at any point, right? 'Cause you're going to be doing it later on.
Well, I mean, as
But
a freelance writer, as a ghost writer, I have a long term client that every once in a while, when he sends me work, it's on a regular basis, and he is. I tell people because I can't show them the work because being a ghost writer means it's confidential. It's he did it, not me. He's taking all the credit. He will send me pictures in stages and then the final picture that he drew, and my job is to make a book out of all these pictures on how to draw. If this guy would apply himself instead of in writing books but actually selling prints, he would make a mint. The depth of detail he can put in these things leaves me sometimes looking at the screen going, how am I supposed to describe how you're supposed to draw this part? I this is okay. Let me put this in smaller chunks here, and I he and I have been working for a good many years, many years. And I decided one day, I'm like, okay, I've written enough of these books. I've seen enough of his step-by-step pictures. I'm going to attempt to draw. No. No. Mm-mm. I mean, every once in a while, something will come out on paper that looks halfway decent, but most of the time, I'm looking at it going, "Yeah, no, mm-mm. I'll just stick
okay,
to describing stuff. Somebody else can come up with what it looks like. I'm good."
right, and you had mentioned AI, where AI has taken over a lot of the drawing aspects of things, right?
Hmm.
And you have these people suing, like I was trying to say,
Hmm.
suing the companies because they used what is readily available on the internet to create a mosaic of things, so that the the AIs could learn what was humans like and what humans don't like, what's valuable and what isn't valuable, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And my complaint to that is this: you have no leg to stand on. Okay, with all due respect, and the reason I say that, it goes back to how many years ago was it when rap came out, and our songwriter said, "Wait a minute, you're using licks that I created in order to create your art, okay, of rap. You're doing a rap song." And they came back with the standard of, well, it's transformational.
Well, I mean, I can see that. I can see the argument. And I can see where you're going. But a lot of these artists and their problem is it's not the general concepts being put into the machine for the AI to spit out the art. It's the same thing that happened with NFTs a while ago, where they're going back to artists that have been dead and putting that art into the machine for the machine to replicate. And that's one ethical issue. The other ethical issue is, these artists that are still alive having their own body of work that is copyrighted on the internet and off the internet, put in these machines so the machine can actually replicate the work.
Well, is it
And they're
really
not being put
replicated,
in
or
the
is it?
machine. Well, I mean, they say it's replicated because their art is being stolen in order to make these replications. Now, from what I have seen, because my knowledge on how artificial intelligence works in the art community is about the size of a 2 ounce shot glass, is I have seen the beginning work and them putting the requirements, ramifications, parameters, algorithms, whatever you
Parameters,
call them,
parameters.
parameters.
Let's look at it.
Into, I know I'd hit the word sooner or later. I would get it. Yay. Okay. They put the parameters in the machine, and then out would come something similar, but not the same. And that similar is not the copyrighted work that the artist put in there, and it is transformative, in which case that is not public domain. Brain fart. Fair use.
Right.
So, and I can see that part and I can see the other part because oftentimes the parameters that are being put in there by these artists that have been doing this stuff for years, they haven't been asked if their art can be used.
Well, just
That's the
like
crux of
this,
the
wasn't
matter.
there a problem with Andy Warhol when he did his tomato soup can thing? All right,
That's a
wrong. Susan's not wrong about that.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
But they considered it transformational then. And
Yeah.
if you have something that's out there, if you didn't want them to use it, you shouldn't have released it to the public.
Well, the whole thing is
But
how did you release it to the public? Because if it is copyrighted and it is in the public space copywritten, then the
if it's
respectful thing to do
transformative,
would be to ask, hey, can I use your work to put it in this AI to see what transformative work comes out? Because transformative or not, that artist is going to recognize that some part of their work has been used in this thing that is trying to replicate their art style. You see what I'm saying?
well, it's just like when somebody wrote licks on a guitar, all right,
Hmm.
and have a record where the guy plays actually part of the record as they do a scratch on it, right?
Hmm.
It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fair use. A lot of people say it's murky. Fair use is it's pretty straightforward. Okay, you have to make changes to it and so that it is completely different from where you started, whether that is using 10 seconds of something that is 2.5 minutes long in a video, or critiquing it, which is another way of doing fair
Well,
use.
critiques another issue that I have that they people for whatever reason have a problem being critiqued. Okay,
And
which
they
I
need to
can understand, but they need to grow a pair.
well, I mean,
they need to grow up a bit. If you can't handle the heat, don't get in the kitchen.
well, in terms of critique, there's two different kinds of critique. There's constructive criticism, which I welcome, because constructive criticism is what every artist, whether they write or whatever art form they choose to do, should be welcomed by everybody in the art and creative space because it helps you grow. It allows you to realize, hey, okay, maybe I'm a little weak in this area. Maybe I need more practice to shore this up. Then there's the other kind of critique that really isn't critique, where people look at it and go, "Well, that's shit." Okay, well,
It's it's
why don't you like it? My whole thing is it aggravates me not because it insults me, not because it hurts my feelings, but because okay, why in your eyes is it shit? Well, why
okay,
doesn't it
but
appeal to you? Can you give me some constructive criticism? You see what I mean?
I do, but I think that when it comes to art stuff, even be looking at it from that perspective.
Mm,
Right? Honestly, not art. The reason is because art is quote unquote in the eye of the beholder.
yeah,
And if somebody's shit, it's shit. All right,
yeah,
that's the way it is. All right, if you sit up there and put a glass jar and throw a crucifix in it and call it art, I'm going to tell you that's shit and it's not art. And if you ask
y-
me why, I will give a whole litany of reasons, not the least of which is it didn't take any talent.
yep,
Okay,
true,
all right, to do
yeah,
that. Okay, and that's part of the issue. I
hmm
think that people that take pictures, all right, as photographers, most of it, okay, isn't really art. Does it mean it doesn't take talent? No. In this case, there are things that take talent, yes, but that doesn't mean it's art. Okay, because to me, it's just all right. You take a look, for example. I think it was I was way back in the day when I was in the army. I went to Paris. Okay, so if you go to Paris, there's certain things you're going to go see. All right, assuming that everything's open. Okay, you're going to go see the Eiffel Tower. Right, this is the way
hmm
Americans think. All right, and you're going to see the
yep,
Louvre. Okay.
okay,
Now, I also got to see the Paris Air Show, but that's a separate issue, which is the reason I was there. All right, but I went to the Louvre, and in there was a painting by I think it wasn't Rembrandt, Raphael. I think it was Raphael, right? But when you looked at the painting, there were sections of that painting that didn't look like painting; they looked like a freaking photograph.
yeah,
Okay, they were that good.
hmm
All right, and that's a person doing it with a pencil, paper, and paint.
yeah,
Okay, it's phenomenal.
yeah. There's
Okay,
a guy on Twitter there's a guy on YouTube that does that, and I just watch his videos just to see how he turns this stuff into it because he pulls you in with the thumbnail of the thing that looks 3D and completely realistic. So you're watching the video and you're like, God damn, how the hell you're watching him do it and your brain is still going, how?
yes, yes, and so I have an appreciation for what I think of as art, right? And that's talent. Okay, the
hmm
the thing about the AI stuff and complaining about the AI and all this other stuff is people. Let's be perfectly frank. A true artist is someone like Michelangelo. Now, why do I point out Michelangelo? Okay, people that are true artists for their craft suffer for their craft. Okay,
Yeah.
it's very very rare. Right, Raphael happened to be an exception. Of course, his suffering was he died when he was what 33, 34, something like that. He
Something like
didn't live
that.
very long. you know? All right, but most people suffer for their craft.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of times artists aren't even appreciated by the people around them. All right, in fact, sometimes their art doesn't even isn't even considered art until after they're long dead and buried. Right, of just
Yeah.
how great an artist they were. Okay, Michelangelo. All right, when he decided he wanted to paint, all right, the Sistine Chapel, suffered painting the Sistine Chapel because he wasn't really a painter. People don't know this. He loved sculpting. He was not a natural painter. What I would when I say that, I'm not saying he couldn't paint and paint phenomenally. I'm saying he wasn't. it wasn't his. It wasn't what he wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Um, but if you take a look at what he did, he was coughing up blood and things. Some of the ways he had to try and do things when he was painting the Sistine Chapel. Suffer for their art.
hmm
Most artists suffer, even if they're suffering for a few years just trying to make ends meet. Right? The
Yeah.
PETA is beautiful. You're correct, Susan. You
And
take a look
then
at these
there's
guys today, and they're not suffering for their art. What they're doing is they're getting into art to make money. Too many. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying too many of them. They're not tortured artists. Okay. I have a friend of mine. I'll give here's another example of what I'm trying to talk about. I have a friend of mine and he's also a work colleague. He's a phenomenal guitarist. Okay,
Mhm.
that's not what he does, but he's a phenomenal guitarist. And so one day I asked him why he's not a professional musician, right? Why he didn't go into that, right? Why is he working in the radiation oncology field as a field technician?
Yeah.
And his answer was this. He said, I walked into a music shop and I met the music teacher, the guy behind the counter, all right, when I was trying to purchase some strings for my guitar, right? And I had seen him play and so forth. And I decided to ask him, okay, you know, I want to become a great guitarist, right? If I want to sit up there and be a part of this thing, what can I, how do I do that? How do I get to there, right? And the guy looked at him and he said, "Are you willing to do my job for the rest of your life?"
Right?
And and Andy looked at him and goes, Anthony. Anthony looked at him and goes, "What do you mean?" Right? And he goes, "You either make it or you don't. And for every person that makes it, there's hundreds like me. All right? I can't put down my music. I have to make music. Okay? Whether people like it or not is immaterial because I have to do it. I can't stop. All right? It's driving me. It's what's driving me. So
Yeah.
if you're not like or you're not willing to make that kind of a commitment, don't attempt it."
Yeah. Well,
And I was
it's
like,
like
huh,
I had
okay.
my son had a friend when I was living in Georgia in Noonan, married to my second husband, who had a guitar. Paul wanted a guitar for Christmas, so we got him a trainer kind of guitar, a practice guitar, not a very expensive one, because we wanted to see if he really wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I said, well, his friend said, oh, cool, you're getting a guitar. I can teach you how to play because I've been playing for X amount of years and I love it. And playing the guitar is great. I play it every day. And this kid was good because I've heard him play. This kid was good at his age. He was in high school.
Mhm.
And after a while, I noticed that Paul was, he'd rather play video games or he'd rather be in his room or he'd rather go outside. And he hardly ever touched the guitar. So I asked his friend, I said, your honest answer is what I'm asking for right now. He goes, yeah. I said, do you think that he actually wants to learn how to play the guitar? And his friend answered with, I personally don't think so because the Christmas that I got my guitar, I haven't put it down since.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
I
goes,
think
I
that
think,
that's,
there are
but
people that want to do it because other people are doing it, and then there are people that want to do the art, whether it's music or the art you see in museums or the stuff that you write, because it's a fire inside them. It's a desire. It's something that they want to do and do a lot.
it's more than just the ability to do it as well. All right.
Hmm.
For example, the same thing applies to people who paint, right? There are people who are naturally gifted drawers. You see it a lot,
Hmm.
right? People who can pick up a thing, do a doodle, and you're like, wow, that person can draw, right? But they're never going to be really good artists because they're they can't. It's not what's driving them. It's something they can do, but it doesn't drive them. It's not the other way around.
Right.
Okay. And so I put it in those kind of categories. If you take a look at what people consider great rap artists, and I chuckle because I don't think rap is much of an art, but that's because it's not driving me, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Okay, it's not that I couldn't take time. I honestly believe this, that I could take time, take a look at some of the ways that they approach it, and I could probably do rap, right?
Mm.
Would it be good rap? No. Why? Because it's not driving me. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
not driven to do it. Okay,
Yeah.
so and unfortunately for when I talk about talent, one of the surest things of talent is if I can't do it. Okay, right? If I can't sing well and somebody else can sing well, they have talent. I don't.
Yeah.
It's a pretty definable standard, right?
Yeah.
Most rap stuff I can come up with. Okay, most, not all of it, not by any stretch of the imagination,
Well, to
but
me,
that. Go ahead.
go ahead. Finish.
No, 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 no. I was
Okay.
basically finished.
To me, it's there's and we grew up in the inception of rap, and then when it was hip hop, and then back to this mumble bullshit that you can't understand what the hell. I'm saying rap. If you actually listen to some of these lyrics, if you can understand these mumblers, because they never open their fucking mouth, they repeat themselves. They're like the broken record that you throw away because you couldn't fix. Okay, it's the same thing over and over again. When rap and hip hop first started, the lyrics were different. Now, there were some joke lyrics, there were some parody raps, there were some raps that made you laugh if you listened to it. But the first actual hardcore rap, like Tupac and NWA and those people, they were rapping a story. They were trying to bring attention to stuff. They had a message that they wanted to convey, and that was what drove them to do the rap. Like you said, all you got to do to me, in my opinion, all you have to do to write a rap song is be able to find and keep the beat of the music. Use that as the pentameter for your rap, to do your rap, to write your lyrics, whether you want them to rhyme or not, and you have a rap song. Now, I'm not saying slapping those lyrics together is going to make any sense or is going to get anybody's attention, but that's the basic thing about rap. Nowadays, it's gone from trying to get a message out to, these are my bees and hoes, and this is my drugs, and this is who I shoot at, and these are my cars, and this is how much money I make, and I'm gonna mumble for the next 3.5 minutes, and it's like you need to open your mouth and enunciate because you're aggravating me.
Yeah.
Because the first time I heard a mumble rapper, I was in a car with a nephew, with Ronan, his nephew, and his nephew's best friend. And the nephew went, "Can you change the station to this?" I said, "Sure." What was coming out of the speakers was unintelligible, mealy mouthed, mumbled bullshit. And I'm looking at the radio going, "What the hell is this?" And he goes, "It's rap." I said, "No, it's not. You're supposed to be able to understand what they're rapping." And his friend started laughing. He goes, "Yeah, you're not going to be able to convince her that this is a rapper." He's not. He's mumbling. Anybody can mumble. Bob Dylan mumbled and whined at the same fucking time. I don't know how he
It
became
was very, very good at that. Well, Bob Dylan can't sing a freaking lick. Let's be
no,
honest.
he
That guy, did,
can't.
his voice is horrific. He can write. He can write songs, right? And he can
Yeah.
come up with songs and things like that. And he's phenomenal. But no, his singing voice is.
He didn't sing. He whined and mumbled. That's what he did. He was the first mumbly artist out there in the music sphere, and he whined. First time I heard a Bob Dylan song, I went, "What is this?" Dad goes, "It's Bob Dylan." And I went, "Is who?" He went, he went, "It's Bob Dylan. He was famous when I was growing up." And all of a sudden, Dad got quiet for a minute. He went, "And I don't know why he's so famous because he mumbles and he whines." And I'm like, "Oh my
Well,
god."
he got famous because, quite frankly, the uh, he was the songwriter of the '60s.
Yeah.
He more than any other artist out there, all right, his songs are iconic for the '60s generation, the hippie generation. And yes, I call them hippies, and I'm not a fan of them. Okay, but the problem that I have with rap, all right, I'll give you a story about rap. Right,
Mhm.
true story. Okay, me and three other guys were assigned guard duty, right, and the guard for us was we had to the facility had two gates, and we had to guard one of the gates, right, at night. Okay,
Okay.
which meant, all right, which meant the night shift. You know what that means? Midnight shifts and stuff.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Right now, guard duty is 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 6 days, 7 days a week. Okay, the first day you're put on guard duty, you're like really intense, right? By the time of the last days on there, you know, they could drive a freaking bomb to this thing. And I just wouldn't care. It's not exactly true, but you know, you end up bored to death on guard duty. I'm trying to tell you. But when you're waiting at night, when it's 2 or 3 in the morning, okay, you're just sitting in the guard shack with the two other guys, right? And you know, you tell stories. In order to stay awake, you talk, right? And it was me and a guy, Forsyth County, Georgia, and a guy from New York who was black. Okay, and I mean black in the sense that you know how you got different skin shades,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
It wasn't that his skin shade was black. It's like at night you couldn't see him because he was that dark.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but which was weird because the other features in his face, the other typical features like the big lips or the big nose, no, he wasn't like that. But he was black, right? I think he was from his ancestry is from Madagascar or something like that, right?
Mhm.
I don't know why that makes a difference, but I'm just making that as an assumption, right? But he was into rap, right? And that's the other thing you could do is you could play music and stuff, and we would rotate depending upon what people wanted to listen to, right? And so he was putting rap on there, right? And the
Mhm.
guy from Forsyth County, Georgia, decided he'd make a point, right? And
Oh Lord.
this guy was a character because he wasn't a bad guy, but he was one of those redneck Southerners that wanted to always make a point, who always felt like the South will rise again kind of thing.
Oh yeah, one of those.
You know what I mean? All right,
Mhm.
not a racist in and of itself. Okay, got to understand that he didn't care about the color of your skin per se. All right,
Yeah.
but he really was one of the hated the idea that if you insult anything to do with the Confederacy, all right, and weren't trying to back it up with facts, he was going to sit up there and bludgeon you. Okay,
Okay.
so you can imagine how some of these conversations went. Just want people
Oh
to
yeah.
understand this. Well, well, one day he goes, you know what? I said, I think I'm going to I think I'm going to write a rap song.
Oh Lord.
And he's like, oh yeah, what are you going to write about? He said, well, you know what it's going to be? I, I'm going to write a rap song, and the title of the album, all right, is going to be "Hangman with a Rope," right? And the first song is going to be "Fear of the White Massa," right? Just like
Oh.
NWA.
Oh Lord.
And Joe pulled back his horn, cocked his arm, was going to slug him dead in the face until he's thought about it and said, "You know what? He's right about it because NWA that." And I was just like, "Oh shit! What am I going to have to?" Oh, thank God, these guys calmed down. Right? Because I was going to have to get involved in it. There's no side to pick, right? You know, because they're both right and they're both being assholes.
Yeah.
You know, because the reason he had played that is because he found out he was from Forsyth County, Georgia. That's why he put in NWA to play it. And it was like,
Yeah.
you know, but this is where a lot of the problems come in. All right, and it wasn't too much longer after that incident where we had the whole Rodney King thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know a lot of you people are like wondering, what the hell is Nomad doing wandering all over the place? Right? Well, it's because I was going to talk about this story here. This is where, Maddy, get ready to interrupt me.
Yeah. 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 Gotcha.
All right.
It's
Once
this
again,
one.
you have full right. I'm not going to play the video because if you want to see it, you can see it. Right? It's violent. It's graphic. When they talk about warning graphics, they're not joking about it in this one. Video shows Memphis police officers kicking and beating Tyree Nichols. All right. Tyree Nichols repeatedly cried, "Mom, Mom," as 5 police officers, now charged with the black motorist's murder, pummeled him with kicks, punches, and baton blows after the January 7th traffic stop. Video released by the city on Friday showed. The video from the police-worn body cams and a camera mounted on a utility pole were posted online a day after the officers were charged with second-degree murder, assault, kidnapping, official misconduct, and oppression in Nicole's death. The officers, all black, were dismissed from the police department last week. Nichols, 29, was hospitalized and died of his injuries 3 days after the conference in the city where he lived with his mother and stepfather and worked at FedEx. 4 video clips chronicle an aggressive escalation of violence directed at the motorist who police had initially said they pulled over for reckless driving. The police chief said that since the cause of the stop has not been substantiated. All right. Now, I'm going to say something that I know some of you have heard from me before, okay? But it needs to be said. Police are not there, okay, to enforce the law. They are not there to protect and serve. They're not. Regardless of what their stupid slogans on the sides of their cars say. They are there to ensure public order. And just that. Okay? They are going to ensure it. One way or another. And at any point in time,
Sorry,
if at
you
any
triggered
point in
a song.
time, no, that's all right. At any point in time, if you get aggressive or get violent in any way, shape, or form, they are going to bring overwhelming force. Period.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Okay?
just, you know, they look at the people. They first of all, now I remember this. I haven't seen the video. I'm not gonna watch it because some
Oh, it's
people have
horrific.
described this. Yeah, I'm not. Okay, I'm gonna start with there are two different types of police officers. Okay, the type of police officers that get shamed into silence because they are so straight laced. They realize if they rat out their fellow brothers, they're either going to wind up dead into early retirement or just disappear altogether. Because not all cops are bastards. I'm not a cap. And then there are the corrupt ones that handle things with a little too much fucking force. Okay? Now, resisting arrest. Don't do it.
And the
It's not a good idea.
get a good old NWA tune there. F the police.
Yeah, yes, right? Right? So I mean, I don't somewhere along the line, probably media fueled, I wouldn't doubt it in the least. People completely and totally stopped respecting police officers to the point where they will resist arrest for the dumbest shit known to man. Okay, if they're pulling you over because you're speeding or you didn't use a turn signal or you're constantly changing fucking lanes, that's a hazard. They're going to pull you over, okay? Just, if there's a little word out there, it's 2 syllables, it starts with a C, it's called comply. People
Okay.
do it every day. I mean, if you're going to resist arrest and you're going to open up a can of worms, you can't put the lid back on once it starts.
Well, the thing is, and I want people to understand this. I'm not justifying this kind of a beating. Okay.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I want to point something out. And I know people are like, well, you just said but. Yeah, I understand. Hey, when you are in these situations and violence, it's violent. Violence has begun. Okay? Where the line is between excessive force, right,
Hmm.
and overwhelming force, that line doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Especially not for you. Okay? If your life, if that person has become violent point, you have to sit up there and subdue that person. And this is where it comes down to. When is a person subdued? Okay? When there's to me, a person is subdued is when they comply. And this was my problem with the rulings, the latter rulings, all right, in the Rodney King thing. Rodney King never complied until the very end where he stopped moving and trying to get up.
Yeah.
You can say what you want, okay? to comply, and they're going to use overwhelming force. And all these people are like, well, there's 5 of them, and they're all this. Why didn't you go in there and be a police officer and show us how it's done?
Well,
Okay? Because I
my whole thing
guarantee you. Go
my
ahead.
whole thing is this. Okay, what state was Tyree was his
This
name
was in
Tyree?
Memphis.
This was a mess. Okay, what state
Yeah.
was the guy in when he was pulled over? Was he completely sober? Was he drunk? Was he on drugs? Because if he was completely sober and decided to act like a fucking idiot, it shouldn't have taken 5 people beating him to death to to put him into compliance. It shouldn't have. Now,
Well,
however, there are drugs out there of the illegal nature that will turn you into a freaking animal, and it will take 5 or more people to subdue your ass. And I'm sorry, tasers don't work at that point. Okay.
they
I
tased this guy. They they,
mhm.
they, they had tased this guy through eyes, the pepper spray, which is all right. I'm gonna be real blunt. The pepper spray shit, okay, may stop an average attacker. All right, just Joe Blow off the street. Okay, but if somebody's intent on doing you harm, okay, that spray ain't doing shit. Okay,
No,
aside from pissing them off. Okay,
no,
right? It's not like pepper spray in the eyes is not like CS gas, and even CS gas there's won't stop you from doing things if you were really intent on doing it.
yeah,
Okay. Now, most people, if they breathe in some type of like tear gas or TCS gas, which is what we used in the military, our whole goal was breathe it in, right? Get out of the gas chamber as quickly as possible so I can, get on with my life, right?
right?
And that's what they do, right?
Yeah,
Now the guys always put these gas chambers. But for people who don't know, the gas chamber is just basically a square building with cinder blocks around it, right? And you'll have the entrance door that everyone will walk through, right? And then you have the exit door. And
yeah.
every exit door of a gas chamber, all right, 10 feet away is a tree for you to run into as people run out. Now, they warn you the tree is there, all right? And if you're stupid enough because you're too preoccupied trying to cough up your lungs because this shit has made you so you can't really see, you will run into the tree. And the drill instructors will sit there and laugh as trainees go through these things and hit the tree every single. It happens every year, right? Every cycle that they go through. But my is there used to be a time frame when if you resisted arrest, okay, understand this. This is true. In the 1950s, if you resisted arrest and the police shot you, it was justifiable.
Hmm?
You didn't resist arrest.
But I
When
just
did it become okay to
I
do
want them to
this?
start implementing tranquilizer darts. You you want to resist arrest? Thud. There you go.
All
Thank you
right,
for
but
non-compliance, and you'll wake up in about 12 hours. Congratulations,
hope.
you won yourself a tranquilizer in the butt.
All right, but we're not the Soviet Union. We're not Russia. Okay, and
I
just so
just
you
totally did.
understand, I'm just putting it out there that there are people who have nasty reactions to tranquilizers.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay,
Of course,
fine. Take all the fun out of it. Okay.
well, no matter what. Well, first of all, I've said something else about that I still consider very true too.
Mhm.
The police should never have tasers, right? And I truly mean that. And the reason for it is because the use of a taser, the actual where the actual use of a taser is called for, right, and actually is effective, those situations are small. Okay, there's very few situations where when a police officer, because the basically the perpetrator has to be more or less still, right, and
Mhm.
can't be very far away.
Right.
Okay, so in those situations, there are other implements. The baton is one of them. Okay, a gun is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the idea that you could use a taser in these situations hasn't increased the number, or hasn't decreased the number of times people have been put down by getting shot by the actual bullet. In fact, all it does is raise the ability of making a confusion when the police grab them and think that they're grabbing the taser because they're too energized, right? That they fire their own weapon into a guy on the ground.
Yep. That's happened a second
Okay,
time now.
well, it's happened dozens of times. All right,
Mm-hmm.
it's far more common than people realize. It really is. All right, it was, what was it? Just 2 years ago, they did it in freaking San Francisco area, the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
With a cop said taser, 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 bam! Well, it wasn't a taser,
Well, they
right?
also recently, I think December or early in January, there was another cop that mistook their gun for the taser too. So
Right, because
yeah,
they're not. How often? The reality is, how often do the cops pull their guns?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's
Okay,
not only
and
that; it's the taser's not going to work on everybody. There are people, just like there are people that are going to be resistant to like mace and pepper spray and stuff like that. There are going to be people that are resistant to a taser for some
that's
strange
true.
reason or another. Body is so dense that it's not going to impact them. Okay. And what I thought was kind of comical in my own twisted way of seeing things is the only way for cops to get certified, because when you work at convenience stores, you get to know a lot of police officers. The only way they get certified in using pepper spray and tasers is if they get sprayed and tased. That way they know what it feels like when they get shot in the face with cayenne pepper spray or they get tased. They won't be able to use the stuff to begin with unless they're certified, and you can't get certified unless you get tased or sprayed.
What does
And
that
some of the
really?
yeah, I've
What does
talked
that
to
really do?
it basically what was explained to me was it it's a training exercise. That way they know what happens when they tase somebody or when they pepper spray somebody in order to subdue them, what it feels like and how to get rid of the effects of pepper spray if one of yours is sprayed with pepper spray. Basically,
What
that's
What
the
if the
whole
police
thing.
officer is a masochist?
Then I guess he's gonna chase the perp with a boner. I don't know.
Well, I mean, or a sadist.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's always exceptions to the rules, but that was, that's basically how they get certified in using both of those things.
right. Well, and I get that. I get that part of it. All right. I'm not trying to. My point is you go through this training for what purpose? To reduce the number of accidents, to reduce the number of incidents and things like that, supposedly,
Hmm.
right? Can
Yep.
somebody show me some kind of demographic where it has had that effect? Because if this kind of training isn't working, why are you doing it?
Right.
It's a waste of time. And it can't be on an individual by individual basis. It has to be, training isn't for the individuals, it's for the group,
Yep.
right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the training
Hmm.
for a group, all right? Just like if you're going to train somebody on how to read and write, and you got your ABCs, all right? You're going to use a method that most people, when they're done, can go A B C D E and go and so on, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but I don't think that anybody even thinks of these things. They keep coming back with, "Oh, we can do more training for the police in this, or we can do more training for the police in that." Really? Can you show me where this has worked?
Right. I mean, I
You know
can tell you where
what?
it almost didn't work, but it's, oh Lord, I still remember that night because I couldn't fucking breathe. Oh Lord, no, I mean I was dating a cop at the time, and in Georgia, when they weren't working, they were working as security somewhere else, and I had the luck of my boyfriend on his weekends off working security for a movie theater. So I would get in for free under the guise that I came to visit him, so I didn't have to pay for a ticket to watch a movie. Well, this particular idiot on this particular night decided that he was going to go in a particular movie theater, and once the door shut and the shit started rolling, he was going to start making a scene. Now, what a lot of people don't know is each of those rooms Obviously, what you do know is they're soundproof. What you don't know is they each have their individual ventilation system, which means something can go off in that room, but you won't smell it in any of the other theaters. Okay, so they were told when the cops got there and the guy was resisting coming out that they were going to go in there and spray pepper spray, not to open the doors. And they said this very loudly, and they said this very articulately. They went in there to do their thing, to cuff him and bring him back out. They had to pepper spray his ass, and some dumb bunny that gets paid minimum wage working at the movie theater got curious and opened the fucking door. This is when they were using the cayenne pepper spray. I have bronchitis. Can you guess what happened to me when I got a whiff of that?
You're just wheezing away. I tell you what, a little CS gas will clear that bronchitis right on up
Right? Oh my god. I mean, they brought the guy out. When they finally brought the guy out, the dude was a mountain of a guy. I don't think a taser would have worked on this. Dude was huge, and he seemed to be a little off mentally too, which probably wouldn't have helped the taser any. But the, as soon as people started smelling the cayenne pepper in the lobby, the manager went, "Okay, who's the dumbass that opened the door?"
I can imagine. I can imagine what that must have been like. But
Oh,
and I'm not saying that this guy deserved, in this case with Tyree. I'm not saying Tyree deserved to be beaten to death. Okay. The
yeah,
thing is, though, in our society, is we've gotten too far down the road of expecting the police, expecting things from the police that aren't part of police, that can't be expected. Now, I'm not saying that they're these police officers because you should fire these police officers. As far as charging them with murder, maybe that's a little bit iffy in my mind because, like it or not, that is their job to bring overwhelming force. The idea that somehow you can't use excessive force in a police environment. What the hell is excessive force? Okay, an excessive force to me, and this is just Nomad's point of view. Okay, excessive force. You have a reason to expect innocent bystanders to get hurt. Okay? So, for example, this guy starts to resist arrest. If you open up with an M60 machine gun, that's probably excessive force in that
yeah,
situation. Because you can expect that bullet to go through him, Susie Q, her dog, and three other people down the street. Okay?
right,
That's excessive force.
yeah.
Okay, you have a reason to expect other people who aren't involved in this to become. That's what should be described as excessive force, in my opinion.
Well,
Okay,
mine
I
is
realize that
it's
I'm not part of this weak generation.
now I'm not either, but I mean it's if they're shooting at you, fine, shoot the motherfucker. You're trained to eliminate the threat. He's shooting at your ass, life or death. Okay, cool. All bets are off. Wild West, let's go, motherfucker. Clip magazine, dump his ass. Almost said clip. I'm trying to remember the difference between the two. Uh, So, but if he's not armed and he's resisting and he's not armed, to me, stop when he's unconscious. Don't beat him to death. Just stop when he's unconscious.
Well,
You've done it. You subdued him. He's unconscious.
okay.
It. You
I
know.
agree. All right, but you got to be very careful with this, and this is where the problem begins. To me, a situation like this. Okay, so you get the guy. He starts struggling. He starts resisting. All right, he's throwing you off. Right, he's refusing to comply. Okay, and then you tell him, okay, stop, or we're gonna hit you some more with these billy clubs. All right, and if the guy just lays there, you can't assume he's not a threat yet. Okay, you can't.
Okay.
Now that doesn't mean you continue to beat him. Don't misunderstand me. All right, but coming down from that adrenaline orgy, okay, or orgasm, or however you want to talk about it, that the chemicals that are going on in your brain, okay.
Yeah, the rush.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. The rush that they're on, okay? It's not something that's easy to control, to ride that, okay? It really isn't. And this is why you end up with what people think of as overreactions that really aren't overreactions. For example, you made the comment, okay, empty the magazine in the guy. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. They're going to pull the trigger till no more bullets come out. And you know when they'll know that? When it goes click. Okay?
Yeah.
When you're into those kind of, you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't. Even in training, you don't. And this goes back to another problem that I have with the police. All right? Because I do have a problem with the police. All right? The When you talk about training, okay,
Mm.
how often are they trained to pull their gun? No, to stand there. All right, walk in through a scenario. You know, you've seen all the little exercises like Dirty Harry, where they're walking through
Yeah.
you know, the things. How often do they go through something like that?
That's a good
I
question.
can I can tell you right now, it isn't every day.
Mm-mm.
It isn't every month. Okay. All right. You're lucky if you go through that once a year.
Well, my whole thing is, everybody's sitting there crying, and you know the whole defund the police is floating around again, which always makes me cringe and shake my damn head. Because if you don't, quote unquote, want the police defunded, don't say defund the fucking police. To me, they need regular psych evals. The longer you're in that particular line of work, the more the stress is going to break down your ability to reason and de-escalate situations. You need a constant psych evaluation done every so often to make sure you're still fit for duty.
There's a problem with that.
Okay?
Okay. I don't disagree with you. But the problem is the same problem that you have to begin with, which is you don't have the money.
Yeah. That
These
would be the.
people think that you can go out there, get your 3 weeks worth of freaking training, right? And that all of a sudden, or 4 weeks, some of them go up to 10 weeks. All right, I can tell you right now, 10 weeks worth of training, it allows you to do the ability to pull the trigger. Okay, this is the Army's methodology. It takes 10 weeks for you to become a soldier that they can put on a line and say, "Go fire this, go fire the weapon." That's all you're there for. That's all you know how to do. Well, you know how to march, okay, as well. But for the most part, all point is basically go out there, pull the weapon, put the weapon, and put the sights on target and squeeze the trigger.
Yeah.
So if you're coming back and telling me as a police officer you're going through this intensive 6 weeks of training, I'm sorry, or 8 weeks of training, I'm sorry, it's not enough. All right. Especially when you talk about, well, they're carrying this on this part over here, and they should know that the taser's on the other side of their arms and things like that. Trust me, when people are in a stressful situation, what they're grabbing is whatever their brain was thinking along those lines at the time. Okay? And it could be the guy had a milkshake in his left hand.
Mm.
I'm serious.
Well,
This sounds weird.
I mean, this isn't equivalent, but I call it, it's when you're not in those stressful situations, but you're sitting. I call it the game show syndrome. Okay, you can sit there and yell right answers to quiz questions all day long, sitting in the fucking comfort of your living room, whether that's a couch, a love seat, or a recliner, and you know you're right, and you're yelling at the person because they're sitting there like a doe in headlights with this dirt look on their face, and they can't come up with the answer to the quiz question, and you're yelling at them because you know the answer. But you're not there. You don't have the lights on you. You're not standing in front of the
Yeah.
audience. You're not the one in the spotlight trying to come up with the answer. You're not the one in the stressful situation. So how can you sit there and explain what's going through that person's mind?
Well, exactly. All right. And I've had a situation where you realize how this can happen because when that incident pops up, your mind is literally in an entire different area. I was literally I grabbed for something with my left hand one time, even though I'm right-handed and I've been right-hand dominant my entire life, right? But I had been practicing doing certain things with my left hand just for the hell of it. And when a stress situation came out, it wasn't anything where I had to worry about killing anybody or anything, right? But when that stress situation is, I moved with my left hand without even thinking, right?
Yeah.
And and missed what I was trying to do because I wasn't able to sit up there and I literally let me tell you something. With an M16, when you fire an M16 from your left hand and you don't have the little tool in there that ejects the brass the other way,
Hmm.
having the brass ejected in your face is no fun.
Getting
Okay, just put it out there, folks. All right.
smacked in the face with the brass is so funny. Got
Yeah,
it.
because
Duly
you're looking
noted.
to the other eye and everything else, right? It was just because, and this was just a training exercise, right?
Yeah.
Right. People are laughing, especially the DIs. The DIs. I swear to God, the DIs probably come home freaking. They have to change their shorts every day from their laughing so hard. Some of the stupid things that people do,
Dude, I look,
right?
one of my friends went through army boot camp and AIT and all that, and he said they were at the firing range, and they were trying to figure out why this girl's weapon wasn't firing. Well, they found out. The dumb First of all, he asked me before he finished the story. He said, "I know you really don't know anything about firearms, so I'm going to ask you this question as a baseline." I went, "Great, I'm a baseline. Shoot." He goes, "When you're putting a magazine in a weapon that holds a magazine, which way are you going to put it?" I said, "Well, the bullet's aimed toward the front of the gun where it comes out at the muzzle, so I would say in the direction where it's supposed to fire." He goes, "That's basics." He goes, "This bitch had the clip in upside down,
Backwards.
backwards." Yeah,
It's
no,
like
no, no. They don't know how she did it. The magazine was
I know they
literally
don't.
in the gun upside down, upside down. I'm like, holy crap, what the hell?
I've seen idiots load the bullets in backwards as well. I mean, it's just well, I don't know. It's not.
It's like I
I
say,
mean, some
I'm
of these
gun
things are
dumb.
supposed to be self-explanatory.
Right? It's like I tell people I'm gun dumb, but at least I know basics. You put the magazine in, aiming toward where the bullet is supposed to come out at, not backwards,
Front toward
not
enemy.
upside down. Right, right, front toward enemy. I know that much, damn it.
You know what that's reference to, by the way?
The claymores,
Yeah, yeah. To
landmines, and
explain to people, the Claymore mine is a semicircular mine. Okay,
yeah.
it looks like a little half moon, right? With a
Mhm.
pound and a half of C4, all right, with 760 steel ball bearings, all right, in the front of it, right?
Mhm.
It's an anti-personnel
Right.
clearer. Okay.
Right.
Well, people didn't realize, front toward enemy. Well, how do I know which way the front is?
Oh God.
So that's where they started literally printing on there. It's on all the mines. It's on all the practice mines. It's on all right, and it's not stenciled. It's part of the plastic.
Oh
Okay,
well.
so, so just so you know, you ready to go to this other story here?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Disney Vacation Club member forcibly shoves a cast member over restaurant seating. Isn't trespassed due to beach club being home resort.
Okay,
Okay.
somebody needed to edit that headline because that gave me an aneurysm. Hold on. What the hell?
It's a tongue twister that I can't even read it right,
Look, if
which
you
is,
can't read it right, that means it
to
wasn't
be
written
honest.
right. Jeez.
No, I just probably can't read it anyway. Antonio Acosta took his group of 11 to eat out at Walt Disney World on Halloween night, but his dinner wasn't going to plan. The sheriff's incident report, so they had to call the cops for this, right? Didn't exactly say how the restaurant at Disney's Beach Club Resort couldn't accommodate his large party. Could the 11 people not sit together? Well, did they have a reservation at all on a busy night like Halloween? Well, first of all, stop right there. Halloweens are not going to generally be busy nights in restaurants, I don't think. All right, maybe
Well, I
I'm
mean,
wrong.
we discussed this before the stream started, and I kind of got curious and looked it up. Okay, last year Halloween fell on a Monday, so I'm thinking he went and celebrated it on either Friday or Saturday night. Those are the two busiest nights in any given month for a restaurant or a resort that serves food. So, and it being a holiday, probably even more so, depending on the age group going toward that particular restaurant. So, knowing that it's a holiday, knowing that it's a Friday, Saturday night, and knowing that this particular resort
You
probably
just said it
does take
was.
reservations,
You said it was Monday though.
it was Monday. But since Monday's a work day and it's not a holiday, chances are they went out on either Friday or Saturday to eat.
But it does
Because,
say that it's Halloween night. I mean,
yeah. All right. Well, if it's Halloween night, Mondays and Tuesdays are usually the slower days, but this is
mhm.
Disney, which is exception number one. This is a Disney Beach Club Resort, which is exception number two, because Disney's busy on any given day of the week if you got the money. Okay, they're gonna be
Granted.
busy, especially on for Halloween stuff, because they can really break out the themes and really do shit upright. So chances are they had a Halloween event on that weekend, which means every resort and every restaurant in those resorts were probably going to be packed, and people would have called ahead for a reservation. So if he didn't call ahead for a reservation and he's just walking up there with his 11 people expecting to get sat, somebody wasn't going to get sat. Somebody probably had to wait until a table came open that wasn't reserved. That's what I'm
Right.
guessing.
No, I understand that. Like I said, the Halloween or the sheriff's report doesn't tell you. All right. What it does say is that how Acosta responded when he didn't get his way. Thank you for your hospitality, Acosta said, and then he forcibly shoved a cast member in the chest with two hands, the report said. Another witness confirmed what happened too. She told law enforcement that she saw the attack, saw Acosta push the employee in the chest with two hands. Thank you for your service. We won't be back, Acosta.
He's
Acosta, 71, all right,
which means he should know better.
described as 71, described as heavy build, wearing glasses and a striped polo shirt. It's unclear where he lives. Authorities were able to identify him, but he was not arrested and did not face any immediate punishment. Disney declined to trespass him, the report said. What does that mean?
Okay, I think I know what this is. Okay, in Georgia, because I know Georgia's not Florida, but in Georgia, the trespassing law is you have to have a uniformed officer present when you kick somebody off of your property and tell them not to trespass on the property again. That sets the precedent that they are not to cross that line into your property anymore, therefore trespassing at that point. I think
Don't
that's
don't
what
you
they
remember
mean
the
by
old
turning that into
days
a
of?
verb.
Don't you remember the old days of the signs that said trespassers will be shot?
Yeah, and survivors will
Right.
be shot again. Ha 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 ha.
All right.
So
I
I,
mean,
I think
just
I think that's what they mean by they didn't trespass him. In other words, they didn't
okay.
officially announce that he is not allowed back on the property.
All right. They didn't trespass him at the time due to his Disney Vacation Club status. This being his home resort, stating it would be reviewed by their legal department first. The employee who was pushed and whose identity is unknown because it's redacted in the sheriff's report declined to press charges against Acosta and refused to testify in court against him, so Acosta wasn't arrested. The report, released by law enforcement recently in January, all right, does not state which restaurant incident where it happened at. Okay, now, why am I talking about this story at all? Okay, because this is like, well, first of all, newsworthy. Seriously,
Not really.
is
I
this
mean, this
a
shit happens every day.
newsworthy story?
This
Well,
happens every day.
exactly. You can go out there and take a look at a Walmart greeter, right, and ask them what stories they could tell. Okay,
Mm,
do you hear about Walmart? And I guarantee in WalMarts every single day, those guys that are doing the Walmart greeting at those 24-hour WalMarts, they have stories every week. I guarantee it.
oh hell! Not
Okay.
only not only Walmart greeters, hell, any convenience store employee that's in a not so great neighborhood has some wonderful tales to tell. I've got quite a few.
Right. Okay. So you understand? Everyone should understand what my point is here. This is
Hmm.
not a newsworthy story.
No, it's
So
not.
they're doing this because they want to bash Disney. All right. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm all for bashing Disney. All right. I have zero problems. All right, bashing Disney. Okay. But my problem starts with the fact that I don't care. I really don't care. I really, really, really do not care. All right. If a Disney employee got pushed.
Well,
Okay.
I
And
kind of do because he was just doing his damn job. I mean, why are you going to lay hands on a person that's probably telling you that you can't get seated at this time because there's no room for you? They're just doing their damn job. What you going to shove them for? Come on. You're 71 years old.
okay,
You should fucking know better.
okay. It starts with the fact that from this standpoint, I don't trust this report. Okay?
Mhm.
We only know what this report says. We don't, nobody was there that we know, right? There's nobody there aside from how these people reported this as to what actually happened here. We don't really know what happened. That's problem I have with number one. Okay, with this now in the sense of this is obviously an overpay. Well, I shouldn't say overpay. If you're 71 and you have a lot of money, I suspect at some point you had to bust your ass to earn it, and you've earned it. Okay,
Mhm.
so I can take that back. But the fact that you're rich doesn't entitle you to it doesn't entitle you to anything, right?
Yeah,
You
especially
can
not
enjoy
being an
you can
asshole.
right. That is all true. And no, if this was exactly as it was stated in this report, you're exactly right. The employee doesn't deserve that. Okay. However, okay, and the fact that they said that the Disney didn't back up the story or anything else, we don't know what Disney did or didn't do. Okay. Yeah, is Disney a faceless, mean corporation that's only looking out for money? Yes. Okay. All right. That's very true. But at the same time, how many in the last 3 years? How many times have dozens of Disney employees at these parks and so forth been arrested on sex trafficking and child misbehavior and stuff like that?
Yeah, true.
All right. Now, it's dozens and dozens and dozens. And I'm going to say something here that's going to sound ridiculous. All right. This is where you're going to have to slap me down, Manny.
Okay.
How do I know that this guy who got shoved, right, isn't one of these people who knew that this kind of stuff was going on? Because I hate to tell you this, but if you've got dozens and dozens of employees being arrested for child sex trafficking, okay, it's there are more people who knew about it or suspected it and didn't say anything about it, all right? And I have no freaking sympathy for whatever happens to those people. Okay?
On the one
That's
hand, I
my
get you,
viewpoint of this.
but I have one question. How big is Disney? Just the Florida
I
park at
understand.
Disney is fucking huge. You've got how
I
many employees working at Disney at any given moment of the day, and you want everybody to know what's going on?
I didn't say everybody, all right? But when you have dozens being arrested, dozens, okay? If dozens are being arrested, how many knew about it? Just those dozen? I don't think so.
Well, I mean,
Another
that's a good
dozen?
point.
I don't think so. All right, let's be honest about something. One problem that Americans have, all right, and I knew this as from my intelligence service time, right, is the fact that Americans talk all the friggin' time. All right, Americans can't keep their mouths shut about anything. In fact, that's how most Americans, if you really want to know the truth about it, are arrested because they're so stupid that they'll do their criminal activity and put it in a YouTube video or on Facebook. Okay? People talk all the time. When it's a single person, and if it's a one off, sure. Yeah, I can see that nobody knew what was going on. But when it's dozens and dozens, every freaking it seems like every springtime, all right? Right about the time of spring break, you end up with literally a dozen or two of these people in either Orlando or over there in Disneyland being arrested on that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Do you see my point?
Yeah.
Okay,
I see your point.
so look, and I'm not a okay. I'm not a fan of Disney. All right, ever since the, ever since Eisner. Okay, now Eisner's idea of Disney was to change Disney into a larger entertainment company. All right, and this changed the vision from Walt's world. Right, and I'm not going to go into Walt's misbehaviors or his failings as a human being or not. Right, I'm just trying to point out that Disney changed with Michael Eisner, and that's when he came up with Touchstone, right?
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right, where they came up with Touchstone and we're putting out our movies because Disney up until that point wouldn't put out anything that wasn't G rated. Okay,
True.
it was back in
Yeah.
the late '70s, early '80s. Disney would only put out things that were G rated, and people were saying, people aren't watching G rated movies anymore, right?
Right.
There was this big push back then that if it wasn't R rated, all right, people weren't going to go see it. These are some of the theories that were going around at the time, right? Right, as I was growing up, right?
Hmm.
I Touchstone changed it into a larger media conglomerate, and from there it has slid into what it is today, right? With
Yeah. Just
Iger in charge of it again,
damn near bordering on
right?
a damn monopoly with everything they own at this present time.
Well, it's but they're at the same time they mortgage themselves to the hilt, right?
Yeah.
It's very possible that Disney gets bought out by the Chinese in the near future, right? Because they're so much in debt right now because of the dumb crap that they were doing,
And
right?
still doing.
Well,
Um,
trying to write it at this point is going to be very difficult because you've put you've put too many of the wrong people. All right, are in the bureaucracy,
yeah.
right? It's like what happened, right? You had to get pretty much the entire staff. Why? Because you couldn't trust anybody within the company anymore. All right. Not
Yeah.
saying that Elon Musk is. I'm not going to ever sing the praises of Elon Musk like other people have. I've said this many times. Is it a good thing that Elon Musk took over Twitter? Sure. Twitter's better than it was. Is Elon Musk the the grand poobah, all right, the activist of free speech that everyone thought he was going to be? No. But then again, he wasn't going to be. Anybody who thought that he was an idiot, and I've tried to warn people about him. He's a leftist, okay? They don't have principles.
No.
This is my view. If you're on the left, most people on the view on the left, they have feelings. They don't have principles. So when all you have is feelings, well, guess what happens? How you feel about this or that, all right, depends on this or that. Number one, and number two is depends on the day. Maybe you woke up and said, you know what? I don't feel the same way I used to. I guess I kind of learned a few things. Screw you. You're all screwed. Or am I am I missing something here? Do you think I'm
No.
missing something?
No, I don't think you're missing anything at all. I mean, it's just everybody keeps touting what a genius he is. He's not the genius. He just knows what's going to make him money, and he hires the people to make him the money. That's Elon Musk.
Well,
He can sniff money. The boy goes every time he wakes up, and then he goes in the direction where he smells the fucking money. That's all he does. He didn't design the fucking rocket that went into space. He didn't design the Tesla. He had the idea and had somebody else do it. That's just the way it is. Okay.
well,
And you
I mean,
had Disney, which, as you put it, and I agree, they started out modest because Walt wanted it. Walt wanted Walt Disney to be for everybody. Period.
right. Well,
But as it
Walt,
grew,
Walt was
mm,
Walt had his own proclivities.
oh yeah, they all did.
Something that was what he wanted was family entertainment.
Yeah.
Okay, he wanted things to be in a family oriented, and he wanted if you go back and you take a look at Walt Disney, I got a lot of appreciation for Walt Disney. I'm not saying he was perfect in any stretch of imagination, but I have a lot of respect for them because the man wanted a company that was quote unquote family oriented internally and externally. He
Yeah.
wanted everyone to work as family members. Okay, now that's you can do that when there's 15 people.
Yeah.
You can't do that when there's 100.
No.
Okay, it just doesn't work that way. There comes a point where your company is too large to treat it that way. This is one of the problems that Walt had, right? And it led to some, some really interesting things, such as the orgy in Palm Springs, right?
Mm.
That Walt was absolutely horrified happened, right? That his employees would act this way, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you read about the incident, it was quite notorious because this happened in the 40s,
Yeah.
right? All right. So just so you understand who Walt Disney was, okay.
Yeah.
But he wanted family entertainment. He wanted everyone to enjoy things, right? Well, once you get so big, you learn something, which is not everyone. You're never going to please everyone,
No.
right? And when it becomes so large, you're not going to please a large segment of things, right? So
Right.
how do you go about that? And Walt himself, a great Walt Disney was a great manager. Okay, he wasn't a phenomenal artist. He was an okay artist. He wasn't a phenomenal inventor. He did invent several things, right, with his brother. But he was a manager of stories, kind of like the visionary. Everyone talks about the big picture guy,
Yeah.
right? Everyone talks about a big picture guy because you need that guy with the driving force. But
Yeah.
but the big picture guy has to also be the guy who knows how to get there,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Not all the little details, but he knows what's necessary in order to get there.
Yeah.
People that are too detail oriented, details. People that aren't detail oriented enough, right,
Mm.
lose track of where they're headed.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was one of those people, very much like Steve Jobs. Okay, very much like Elon Musk, like you were saying. These are not people who in themselves are the innovative stars of the world. All right, they're the visionaries that are good enough to know how to get there.
Yeah.
That can establish the points to go from point A to point B to point C and know I've got to go from here to here to here. And they can get it done.
Yeah.
Not everything that they have works. For example, Epcot Center. Okay? Walt Disney, the only reason Epcot can exist today is because of Walt, because it's never made money. It's never been profitable, but he has he has this. It isn't as bad as it used to be. But the Epcot Center, when they first opened it for years and years and years, it didn't make a profit ever, right? Or even break even. And the reason for it is you had Disneyland and Disney World that people preferred to go to.
Yeah.
Okay, but he had that vision. I want this to be international, right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know though if he would have opened Disneyland Beijing.
I don't think he would have either. I don't think he would have expanded to France. I don't think he would have gone to China. I don't think he would have gone to some of these countries that, it's gone to because, it to me it was always an American thing, and in I think when one did open up in France, right? Because I remember one being completely
Yep. Yep.
ridiculed when it got okay. I think that was the one that got completely ridiculed was the one that opened up in France. By the French because, French. And it's you have to ask yourself, what the hell were you guys thinking? There comes a point where you got to look at where the dollar's going and go, maybe not. Maybe not a good idea to do that ever. You know,
Well,
and
you have to be honest enough to know what your audience actually is.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, just because when
your
they come,
your,
when they
your
visit here
audience
from
is
France,
English speaking.
yeah, I mean, just because they come here from France, visit here from France and then go to Disney World or Disneyland doesn't mean they want one over there.
Right.
You know,
Especially if an American is behind it. Okay.
exactly. Yeah. I mean,
I hate to put that to you, folks.
yeah. I mean, then they started, and then all these acquisitions that, and quite frankly, in my opinion, should have never been acquired because first of all, the writing in a lot of these things has made me just close my eyes, shake my head, and go, "Can I have a pair of ruby slippers so I can rewind time, please?" Because some of this shit is just fucking awful. Okay, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. These new writers, whether it's Disney or any other fucking form of visual and audio entertainment media, are writing like we played pretend in our backyards. Oh, I'm losing to the bad guy. All of a sudden, I have this really cool new power so I can kick its butt. I can't explain where it came from. It just suddenly happened, and I just suddenly have it because I'm that great. The writing is shit.
Well, the writing. I can't argue with you about the writing. Right. The thing is that I have a problem with is what is the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Okay. I think people forget this. Okay, because they're not trying to tell stories.
No, they're
There's
trying.
too many. Too many are trying to write communist manifestos.
I mean, it's
And
when everybody laughs when I call it this, but when the bile awakened, Force Awakens, when the bile awakened, and I watched the movie, I was sitting there at the end of it wondering why they skipped over a perfect opportunity to have an enemy or a bad guy turn good. Because they would have had one hell of a sequel trilogy if they would have just done the hero's journey with Finn. I mean,
yes.
you have a stormtrooper that realizes he can use the Force, and then he goes over to the rebel side and he learns how to use the Force. That would have been one hell of a fucking story. No, they went with Rey.
I agree.
You know.
Not because not that they went with Ray, but the thing is these guys are trying to write manifestos, political manifestos.
Yeah.
Okay, the, Karl Marx, for the people who don't know, right, wrote two big pieces. Right, one was the Communist Manifesto. Right, the other one is Das Kapital. Okay, the only time you read these stupid things, all right, is in college. Because you always get the idiot professor who's going to assign it to you for whatever reason. Most of them is because they become enamored with it. All right? But if you ever read it, all right, it's a freaking school textbook. Okay? It's not telling any stories. It's not doing anything of the kind. And even if you're a supporter of communism or Marxism, if you don't try to tell the story, most people, I mean, let's be perfectly frank. Do you remember any of the books that you wrote in, or not wrote, but that you read in high school? Can you tell me the name of your sophomore history book? Any of them that you may have written or read?
I know I had to study them, but I couldn't tell you what was on the fucking cover. Oh no,
Okay.
wait a minute. One of them, I think it was in high school. It's actually high school. Might have been sophomore. The same history book they use in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Don't know the name of it, but it's the same damn book.
You recognized the cover, did you?
I recognize the cover.
All right. You see my point.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
So if
it's
you,
like I forgot the stand-up comedian that did this, but to prove a point, he stood on stage and he goes, "Okay, this isn't going to be funny, so I'm going to warn you about that for a minute. But I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions. How many of you in the crowd tonight can name all of the justices of the Supreme Court? Three people in the entire audience raised their hand. He goes, okay, now how many of you can tell me the name of the pig in Green Acres? Everybody raised their hand. He said, I rest my case. He proved his point in two questions. I mean, the shit we're supposed to
Yeah.
be paying attention to, we have no clue. We don't pay attention to it at all. And the shit that we're not really supposed to be, paying real close attention to, we remember.
Well, and that's true, but there's no story attached to them.
Mm-mm.
It used to be, it used to be that people would have a story attached, all right, to their life story,
Yeah,
right? When they even when they became a justice of the Supreme Court,
yeah.
okay. Nowadays, that you're not getting a story. You're getting, you know,
You're
this
getting a
side
list of
says he,
labels.
yeah, this guy did this, this guy did that, this guy did this guy that. She did this, she did that, she did this. What's her story?
She's the first black lesbian on the Supreme Court. That's all we know.
Who,
She's the
who,
first black person on
who,
the Supreme Court. She's the first Hispanic or Latina on the Supreme Court. He's the first old black fart on the Supreme Court. He's the first senile son of a bitch running the country. Oops, wait a minute. That's not the Supreme Court. Let me back up. Wait! My
we'll
brain's.
talk about that. That's a
We're not
separate.
going to talk about our
But there's
senile
no
senior
story.
in chief. No, there isn't.
That's not what my intent was. No, but my point with this is if you're trying to do a fictional story writing of some sort, all right, you have to write the story.
Yeah,
Okay, you have to have the story of where the story is going for the characters. You can't just try and do a screed.
yeah,
Let's be honest. That's what all the new Star Wars stuff was. In
yeah.
fact, I hate to say this, and I don't know a lot of people don't like this, but don't come back and tell me that Steven Spielberg was better at it because as he started to age and you started to get into the second trilogy, the the prequels sucked,
Yeah, George
folks.
Lucas kind of dropped the ball on the prequels. They were kind of
Okay, and
sneaky.
and the reason for it is exactly what you stated before. What was the story? Oh, seriously, what was the story you were trying to tell? All right, about
Yeah.
Anakin. No, you introduced Anakin, but you didn't try to tell his story.
No, you told us that he was the second coming, basically, with the Metachlorian
Right,
bullshit. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And this is why sure the Flash was there. All right, there was more, and there was more story than what you see in this latest tripe of Star Wars. I'll agree with that.
yeah.
All right, but it still suffered because you didn't have what you described it, the hero's journey. Luke, you were looking at Luke. Show me a time period, right, when you're looking at Anakin, okay, where it was just everyday mundane life for Anakin.
Yeah, he was the son of a
You
slave. That was it. That's all you saw. It's like there's no backstory for Ray either. She was a scavenger on a planet. There was no
right,
motivation for her, and I said this on another stream a while back, not soon after I got to see the movie, which was maybe 6 months after it had, like dropped everywhere else other than the freaking movie theater. And I said, I have one question, and I doubt anybody on this panel in this live stream can answer it. They said, "What? What is her motivation for leaving the planet and saving the world?" She has none.
she
I
she
mean,
has no motive.
returning the droid back to its owner isn't, oh, I feel a deep seated need to be the hero of this story, so I shall leave my mediocre, beginnings and my scavenging lifestyle and save the galaxy.
You would think that by the time that you have something like FedEx, right? Okay,
Yeah.
you can see her dropping, putting the droid in the box, and then shipping it off, right? All
I
right,
mean,
unless at some point she's become a box carrier of some sort, right?
yeah. I mean, it's
I mean,
for Luke. Everybody will sit there and some people, because whenever you bring up the fact that she's Mary Sue, little play on words there. they bring up how Luke was. And I'm like, no, Luke was not a Mary Sue in any definition of the word. First of all, his motivation was he was bored. He knew there was something more out there and he wanted to go see it. He wanted to answer the call of adventure. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden he found this old man in a cave that told him, "Hey, your dad was a Jedi," and conveniently left the part out that his dad became the biggest asshole of the universe. But that's beside the point. We find that out in the next movie. But the point stands. There's a backstory. There's a reason why he wants to leave the planet. Ray was just, well, I got to take this droid over here.
Well, the first thing is you hear him talk about teen, and let's be perfectly frank, the one thing that he did really good there, that I thought that George Lucas did really good there, is he tied into teen angst.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there's certain things, for male teen angst. I want to go somewhere. He had always,
Hmm.
you have the whole background when his aunt and uncle are talking together, and they're talking about, you can't keep him here forever, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you hear him saying, "I want to go out with my friends. I want to go do regular teen things," right? And he's told, "No, you got to take the droids over there," right?
Yeah.
And he whines like a teenager. He has all these other moments that are relatable, that are relatable to you, right? With all due respect to everything else that's going on with George Lucas, is none of the characters that he puts out later, all right, in the
Hmm.
prequels, are nearly as I hate to say it, but Jar Jar Binks was the only one who was even partially relatable, and we all hate him.
Yeah, he was annoying as fuck.
Okay,
Yeah, he was. I mean, you're right. I mean, he was annoying as absolute fuck. He was, but he was
but
relatable. He was the
he
goofball that
was.
was thrown in untenable circumstances and did the best he fucking could. He was the clown. Now, see that's another problem with
It,
the writing now. They don't think that they can show a strong female lead without having to knock down all the males around her 3 or 4 pegs. That's not good writing. That's bullying.
well, I think the problem there is they've forgotten what femininity actually is. All right,
Hmm.
and that strong doesn't necessarily equate to masculine.
No.
Okay, and that's where they've. Now, granted, I understand where people get that kind of a mentality from it. Okay, because males tend to be physically stronger. You can lift more weight, right? You can run generally faster, not necessarily quicker. Okay, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's a problem. We talk about masculinity, and they think that in order for the woman to be strong, therefore she has to have masculine traits.
Yeah, that's
No.
yeah. Somehow along the way that's what they think. And no, we don't. It's because they're trying to erase due to, the current rhetoric of the time, the biological differences between men and women. Can women be strong? We can be physically strong, but we will never be as physically strong as a man. That is a
As the strongest
biological
man.
fact. As the strongest man, that is a biological fact. However, we have strengths in other ways. We can persevere. We can take literally, they measured this a few years, I don't know how many years ago. They measured the absolute pain a woman goes through in child labor and they said it was equated to breaking every bone in your body simultaneously. That is how they described the most intense contraction during child labor. The breaking of every bone in your body simultaneously. And we endure
I don't
this
know.
whenever we have kids, which is why a lot of us have headaches a lot of the time. But I digress.
That's a
Uh,
separate issue.
it's a separate issue. There's Scarlett O'Hara was a strong female heroine. You have and when we list in arguments and stuff, we list the first two that pop into our mind: Ripley and Sarah Connor, right? And then we get hit back in the face, because I said this in the video, with the picture of Sarah Connor already muscled out, armed to the hilt, and looking like a badass bitch. The question is, did she start out that way? The answer is no, she did not. She started out as a diner waitress,
No.
minding her own damn business, living her life, eking out a living, living paycheck to paycheck, and the next thing she knows, she's being chased all over the place by this guy that wants to kill her because she birthed the one person that can, lead a rebellion that will lead to the end of Skynet. But she doesn't know this because she's a diner waitress.
I have issues with the Sarah Connor thing, but that's a separate issue.
I have issues with every movie and television show that decides they're going to do a time travel story because they always open a loop they never fucking close.
Yeah, well, you can never do it, and that's the
No.
thing. It's I don't think that written by I think it's a David Weber. I don't remember who the author is off the top of my head. Called Apocalypse Troll.
Mm,
Okay, and basically they have a time travel thing going on in there, right? But their thing was once you go back in the past, okay, you are no longer in your time stream. As you go back, you're forcing a divergence to the time stream. Okay, it's not the same,
yeah, that makes sense.
right? Well, it's part of what they call the many worlds
Yeah,
um, philosophy and everything, which is one of the reasons why we don't have time travel. If time travel existed, it would be the ultimate chaos
yeah,
because you'd never exist and you exist simultaneously.
yeah,
It's like saying that you're eternally stuck in Schrodinger's equation, where Schrodinger's cat forever.
yeah. I mean, it's like
Okay.
the best description of a time loop that I have ever heard, funnily enough, came from Zaphras in Babylon 5 during that little mini arc when he looked at the three of them and he said, "You are the one that was, you are the one that is, and you are the one that will be, and this will happen again."
Yeah.
And he's the only one out of the time loop remembering every time this looped. And I remember thinking, and how do you not go insane seeing the same three people, the same three different times over and over and over again when you're
Well,
the only one that remembers this is happening?
but once again, they do a good job with him because he is a side character that they don't go into explaining.
Yeah,
They leave that mystery out there. This is one of the things that about the
he is
first
Zaphras. That's it.
Star Wars. All right, the first Star Wars when you're talking about the Force. The
Yeah,
Force was a mysterious force,
yeah.
right? The second biggest mistake that Lucas made in the prequels was he tried to explain that. He never should have explained it. What
No,
was the point of explaining it?
he wanted to. It was his story, and he wanted to explain it. But that
Yeah,
that leads
but
back
why?
to another pet peeve of mine. Not every mystery needs to be revealed. Not everything needs to be explained.
Right. But
You
I
know.
think I often I would love to find out why he had felt the need to. Okay. Now I
Yeah.
realize that he was the author of this and he's the one who created it. That's fine. But why did you feel the need to have to go back and explain it when you didn't need to? You didn't see that need for how many for the trilogy, for the first trilogy. You didn't see the need for how many years, and then all of a sudden developed the need to have to explain the Force. Did you ever wonder about that? Why
Yeah.
he felt that he had to explain that? And I'll be honest with you, if I think it's because he was upset that people would think of it as a religious exercise. Right? That's why I think he wanted to explain it.
Well, I mean, if
Right?
he if
Was
he
to try
wanted,
and divorce it from religion.
Mhm.
Because there were idiots out there, let's be honest, there were idiots out there that were trying to make it into a religion.
Hey, there are idiots out there that believe in L. Ron Hubbard's whatever the fuck Scientology bullshit and think that's an actual goddamn religion when it's a science fiction book. I mean, come on. Let's be realistic. There are always going to be people out there that are going to think something's completely implausible is a freaking religion. Okay, my whole thing is
That's
it's
arguing.
right. They look for something that isn't there and make something out of nothing. Mountains out of molehills, basically. It's they're
Right.
gonna look for something, and they don't want Christianity, so it's got to be something else, as far fetched as it sounds. And the force. It was simple. You either had people using it for good, supposedly, which were the Jedi, and then you had people on the dark side. You had the light side, and you had the dark side. Now, the reason I say supposedly is because everything may sound really good in theory and on paper, But once you add in something called the human equation in politics, it all goes to shit.
Well,
And,
people are
you know,
people. That's not
yeah,
going to change.
if people are going to be people, they're going to have their own motivations and they're going to try to do their motivation, their own motivations and stuff. And it's like,
Right.
to me, when I watched the first Thor movie for the MCU, the it was explained, the magic was explained succinctly, very simply, and very as a matter of factly. Magic is just a science we don't understand yet. The Force could have been explained the same way. The Force is a
Yeah,
scientific
yeah, no,
concept
no,
that we don't explain, that we don't understand fully.
yeah.
Instead of going into the whole midichlorian bullshit and little Miss Immaculate Conception over here with her little Anakin in the corner that just popped into her womb one day, like the midichlorian said, "Oh, that looks good. Let's just give her a baby." Okay, boop, here's Anakin. I'm like, okay, you turned her into Mary. Okay, whatever. Mary without
Well, I
Joseph.
mean, it's
I mean, let's face it,
it,
that's all it
you
was,
did a bad job of that. Yeah,
right?
no, no, it was, and it's which for the storyline for Anakin never explained anything.
No, it didn't.
Right? And that goes back to, and I hate to say this, when Anakin's mother gets killed, right? Did you really feel anything for Anakin?
No.
Why? And the reason I say that, is I was the same way. But isn't that bad? He was so non-relatable that when his mother died, you didn't care.
To me, it wasn't the
Okay.
fact that he wasn't relatable. It was the fact that even though they were trying to push that he was the main character of this story, of this particular hero's arc in 3 movies, they they sort of made him a side character in his own trilogy because they focused more on Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn than they did on Anakin. So he felt, you saw him, he was there, but you couldn't really have an attachment to him in any way, shape, form, or fashion because it was always Qui Gon arguing with Obi Wan, or these guys over here doing this, or, you know, there weren't any relatable moments because they didn't flesh out his character the way I believe it could have been fleshed out. They were always pushing him to the side to focus on his teachers.
Right. Well, I don't know if they were pushing him to a side to focus. I disagree with your point about saying they didn't focus correctly on him. I think the problem that they had is when they focused on him, they didn't try to do things to make him relatable. And then when he focused on the teachers, the problem was is that between what they did focus on with him and then when you compare them to the teachers, right?
Mhm.
Let's be perfectly frank. The teachers were more interesting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're like, oh, he is, yeah, okay, whatever. He's, he, it's hard to do sometimes for people to do teen angst correctly.
Hmm.
Right? This is true not just
Well, I mean, he wasn't
in
even a
movies,
teen when they
but in
found him.
writing.
He
Right,
wasn't even.
but
Yeah.
the second one he was a teen.
Oh
You're
yeah,
supposed to be trying to get the whole teen angst thing added.
yeah,
Let's be honest, they did a shit job at it,
yeah.
right? And and I'm going to make a statement that most people have probably never heard me make before, but it's very true. They did the same thing to Anakin in that movie that what's her name? The person who did Harry Potter.
Oh, J.K. Rowling.
Rowling. What like Rowling did to Harry, all right, in the book, the Order, the one with
Yeah,
the first, what do they call it? The Order of the Phoenix.
yeah.
Harry at that, if you ever read that book from as a guy, all right, you're gonna
Hmm.
look at that and go, Harry wouldn't go do this. This is not how
No.
what Harry's thinking. Okay, Harry went from being a relatable character in the first 2 books, all right, highly relatable actually in the
Hmm.
first 4. All right, the first book and the fourth book were actually very very good. Goblet of Fire was awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first book, the source, the Sorcerer's Stone was a great book too.
Hmm.
Goblet of Fire was the second best book in that series. The third best book in my and that's close to the third best, and the third best was only because they were talking about Snape, which is the first First Blood Prince, right?
Yeah, the
Half
Half
Blood
Blood
Prince. I'm
Prince.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right, those are the best three of those storylines in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, and obviously I've read all the books. Okay, but in the Order of the Phoenix, she attempts to write teen angst into Harry's character, and she did it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason it fails is the same reason that you are pointing out. All right, which is with Luke. You pointed out Luke was looking ahead. He was looking forward. As
Mhm.
a teenager, everyone's doing that.
Yeah.
That's a relatable point. No matter whether he's looking for the same thing forward as you would do, it's still a relatable point because you can see that it's relatable, right?
Yeah.
Everyone looks forward when you're a teenager to getting out on their own and being out there for the first time, and the feeling of you call it angst, but the whole mixture of excitement and fear because you don't know what's going to happen and all the other things that are mixed into it, but you're going to go, right?
Mhm.
You don't see that in Anakin.
Yeah.
You don't see the develop where he's trying to go anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Well, there's it's and mentioning Harry, there are some things that they skipped over Harry because they never really explain, except for glimpses when Snape is trying to teach him how to block the obvious, Voldemort from seeing into his mind, and Harry accidentally peers into Snape's. He never knows. Nobody tells him who his parents are. He has this hole in who he is because he has unanswered questions. So, they tried to make him more of somebody who was lonely all the time than actually writing a good teen character by the time they got to the Order of the Phoenix. Yeah, I get it. You're an orphan. You were a baby. Your parents died defending you. You want to know who your parents are, and no fucking buddy is telling you who they are. And the one person that's talking to you is made to talk to you, so we're led to believe. And he never liked your dad because he thought your dad was an ass.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's be
so
honest.
so he's
His
going.
dad was an ass.
Yeah, his dad was an ass. Once we got to see into Snape's mind how much of a bully his dad was, you're like, well, shit, and
Well, it could be from
less
time to
Sirius
time. I
wasn't
mean,
much
that's
better.
that's that's a true story.
Yeah, so
No,
but
no.
you have all these things when they set out. Some of these people set out to try and write a really good story, and they miss things along the way. If you're going to write a story about an orphan, then part of that journey into him being a hero has got to be him discovering who his parents are. Okay, same thing if this adopted going through. It doesn't have to be the main arc. Okay, it doesn't have to be the one thing that he's obsessed about. Obviously, not in the Harry Potter movies because Voldemort's chasing his ass everywhere all the time because he doesn't want to get killed by Harry. But that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Um, but then you have all these other things thrown into the mix, and then, like you said, teen angst has to be written a certain way because once all of us become teenagers, you can't forget what that feeling is because once you
No.
forget what it was like to be a teenager, you can't write what it's like to be a teenager accurately.
Right, I agree. I agree totally. And
Yeah.
I think that it's not that it's not. Yeah, I'm not trying to bash J.K. Rowling or anything because the story is her story. It's not how I would have written the story. Right?
I mean, it's a
But
good
but
story.
it's her story, and that's fine. And
Mhm.
and, and like I said, it starts off in a very very good manner.
Mhm.
And the same thing applies, like I said, to the whole thing. It was very very well done. But the real problem is when you try to you've already assigned these things to people. You forget that the audience, you may have assigned it to people in their head, but the audience isn't there.
Yeah.
The audience isn't in your head.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Um, my biggest question has always been, right, when you talked about Anakin, what's his motivation? What. Okay, he wants to be a Jedi. Why? Why does he want to be a Jedi?
Yeah.
It wasn't to save his mom.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't. He had no reason to be a Jedi.
Nope. He just got scooped
Okay,
up. He got tested, scooped up, and taken. That's pretty much what happened. They kidnapped his ass.
right?
I mean, let's break it down into basics. They wound up on this planet. They tested this kid. This kid tested out of the world for these midi-chlorians, and then they decided that they were going to teach him, so they kidnapped his ass.
Let's talk about something else, and this is going to come out wrong, and I know it is. I don't really care. He was a slave,
Mm-hmm.
right? Was he mistreated as a slave?
Didn't look like it.
Then why would he want to leave? When you're a kid at that age, at this age, I'm talking about, you don't know what slavery is unless someone's beating you, right? Unless you're seeing Uncle Joe, all right, hauled up and being whipped to death, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have no conception that slavery is really a bad thing.
Yeah, because I mean, look at his mom.
Okay, exactly. There's no one, right? You don't know what his mom may or may not have been forced to go through. We don't know.
Yeah.
And present any of that. So you gave no reason for him to want to leave Waddle. Waddle was giving him everything he wanted to. Toys to play with. Let's be perfectly frank. A kid
Mm-hmm.
that age has got toy after toy he can create with. All right? And Waddle just goes, here, go get some more toys, for you to play with. Oh,
Yeah.
now and then, here, fix this. Okay. But that's really what it was
Yeah.
like.
And
What
what?
they showed.
And he was doing what he liked. He was doing pod racing. He wanted to pod race, so that's what he was doing, and that's what he was allowed to do. I mean, it was just, it's the same problem that I have with Ray. There were really no motivation to
Yeah,
do anything greater than what they were already doing. I mean, here's these
right.
two Jedi. They testing you. They tell you that you're deemed for greatness. You're what, like 8? You don't give a shit.
Nope. And you see that happen to certain people, okay, that aren't you're deemed to be destined for greatness, but there's no one there to teach you to be great. Okay, those kinds of characters, all right, in real life don't exist.
Yep.
All right, so you don't get the kind of training he should have developed. Let's be honest. The way he should have been developed is that people should have been giving him things, and he should have had some kind of overarching ambition somewhere
Yeah.
that was burning in him. But you didn't give him any ambition, right?
Yeah.
That you could have started it, all right? I mean, the very fact is he was in love with Padme from when he was 10, right?
Which is
She
weird.
could have
But
laid down a sequence of things that he had to achieve in order to get her. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Where
Which
he's
is really
doing
weird
this.
because how old was she? Because I'm like, ouch, that's gross.
Well, okay. My guess is this. This is how I would have put it. I guess that when he became the 17-year-old teenager, and I'm going to
Hmm.
use 17 as the demarcation point. When she was a 17-year-old, all right, she was now 7 years older, which would have put her in about 25, 26 category.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the problem with that is you do nothing. These people have no world in common, and they weren't always together.
No.
Okay, when he went off on his little Jedi training, she didn't see him for years and years, right? Why
Yeah.
was she infatuated with him when she was 10? All
I.
right,
Yeah.
all right. Now, if she was infatuated with him when he was 10, when
That's
she
gross.
became 27, she'd be looking for another 10-year-old. I hate to tell you that, but you see
Yeah.
my point.
Hmm. I mean, it
Right?
was just that whole thing was weird. And then when you bring that up, they always bring up the Luke and Leia thing, and I'm like, look, they didn't know they were related. When they found that out, it was kind of awkward.
It was awkward when she kissed him the first time.
Hmm.
Let's be honest,
Yeah.
right? The only reason she kissed him was to sit up there and make Han jealous.
Yeah.
Right? Let's be perfectly frank.
Hmm.
Right? She did it to stick it to Han. And
Yeah.
she would, and I'll tell you what, if Luke wasn't there and the Wookiee was, she would have kissed the Wookiee.
Yeah.
Okay?
Probably.
just put it out there. I guarantee you, Chewie would have been like leaning back, smiling, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Because that's what that was. What that was intended for. She was trying to put the needle to him,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's just
And of course,
the problem with the whole thing is they tried to expand and, dare I say, improve upon the world that already existed with the three original movies. And you can't it's really hard to do that and do that successfully and do it well, because you can be successful at something and it not be, you know, mind-bogglingly good. Okay.
well, I
But
think the way to do that they could have done it, to be honest, is you had to come out with with Anakin, all right, having certain proclivities that were mean.
yeah.
Okay, you had to establish that Anakin had a, and the easiest way to do it would be Anakin had a temper problem, right?
Mhm.
Where you see him, like he comes upon his mother trying to sell some kind of ware in some kind of shop or something, like curio shop or something. Somebody grabs her ass, right? As a 10-year-old, right? Pick a stick up and hit the guy,
Yeah.
right? That kind of anger management kind of thing. You could have done this would have made him more relatable.
Yeah.
Okay, and it would have developed a type of character flaw that all of a sudden appears. All right, when his mother gets killed. Now, like I said, when his mother died in the after being captured by the Sand People, right, where he kills all the Sand People.
Mhm.
The first problem is nobody's going to care about the Sand People being butchered.
No. Not really, no. Well, the other
All
thing was
right,
is when they took him up there in front of the council, okay, they said that he cannot be taught because he has a lot of sadness, and sadness leads to the dark side. And I'm like, okay, look, sadness can be worked through. Sadness can be counseled. Grief can be handled and worked through, and you can get to the point where your sadness isn't the end all be all of your being. Okay? Sadness can be coped
I
with.
agree. I agree.
Okay? So
I
saying that
agree.
you can't teach this kid because he's sad and sadness leads to the dark side, to me, was always a bullshit excuse.
Well, it had to be because the reality is what did he have to be sad about?
Well, I mean, he was taken from his mom. That's what they were probably picking up on. But yeah, I mean, any kid that
You see
age,
my point?
yeah, any kid that age taken from their mom to see if they can be trained as a Jedi isn't going to be, Mr. Yippee Skippy, hi, I'm happy, life is great kind of
Right.
person. I mean, you just
Well,
took him
no, no,
from
I
the only
agree.
person that loves him, and now he's in the middle of all these weird looking ugly people trying to judge his ass to see whether or not he can be taught.
Well, what's more of him? I hate to say this, but Waddle never treated him like all as bad as he could have. He probably could have. Why would he assume that Waddle didn't love him?
Yeah, true.
Right. See, this is my problem. You haven't established any of this stuff. I'm not saying that Waddle did. I'm not saying that they could have. But see, there's all these other assumptions that's never shown in these shows that sit up there in order to establish all of that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like you said, this is where the bad writing comes in. I hate to put it to people, but George Lucas, yes, he wrote some good things, but not everything he wrote was good. And that prequels the prequels were just bad.
Yeah.
And the reason for it is that his whole focus in those prequels, you could tell, was all about the special effects and increasing the special effects. It
Mhm.
wasn't about story writing, and it showed all through the whole thing. There is no way in the world you can describe get to the point where the way they did. He goes out there and just butchers a bunch of younglings and just starts whacking their heads off. Come on,
Yeah, there would be people there fighting him every step of the damn way.
all right.
That Yeah, that was stupid. I mean, you
You
could
know,
the difference between that and Order 66, was it Order
yeah,
66? Was
Order
Order
66.
66 came out of absolutely nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Nobody was expecting that to happen because that was well orchestrated. What happened with Anakin going rogue was, first of all, you'd have to be an idiot not to see that he was changing. and not for the better.
Yes.
Because he was
Yes.
hanging around Palpatine a lot more than he was hanging around the rest of the Jedi. He was questioning stuff more. He was getting more anxious. He was being more short tempered. And everybody just let this go. And it's like, why are you letting this go? This isn't fucking right. Somebody needs to pull him over to the side and ask him what is going on with him because he's changing and it's not for the better. But you guys just let this go and let this go. And then here we are. You
And I
know,
have and I have another problem, and that is, and most people don't look at it this way, but I do. You turn Padme and her whole thing. You have a major character that you turned into a 2D tragic figure.
yep.
No depth to her. Okay, literally no depth, no agency on her own.
She was a plot device.
Okay, and that's how they treated her, and I'm not, and it's not the actress's fault.
No, and she
Okay,
started out as a well-rounded character. She was the leader of Naboo. She got things done. She was intelligent. She was charismatic. She knew what needed to be done, and by God, if you stood in her way, you were going to get a fucking earful. And it went from that to, Anakin, why are you doing this? Really? Fucking
your
really?
loved one is turning her, and you're just sitting back going, "Gee, why? Why are
Yeah.
you a monster? I guess I
Hmm.
have to love you anyway. That you're a monster." It was stupid.
Yeah. It
It
was
was,
really
the
dumb.
story writing there was stupid with her. Right? I have no problem with Anakin losing his mind over her death. All right, but they did that whole thing wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, they really did, and it, there's no there. It was the start of the destruction of Star Wars. All right,
Yeah.
from the way that people were talking about it, and one of the problems that I have with people like George Lucas, right, and J.K. Rowling fits his characterization as well. Look, you guys created a world, okay? Let other people write in it.
They have.
Let other people expand in it.
The,
All right, without trying to take it under your, leave it open for people to do as they please.
well, I mean, it's
I
in
think it's
terms
I
of
think it's hubris.
in terms of Lucas, he did because there are a multitude of Star Wars novels out there written by a multitude of different authors that expanded on and made the world bigger and more robust and more well-rounded. And when they did this prequel trilogy of the sequel trilogy over here, everybody was like, you could have done Thrawn. Why
Yeah,
didn't you do the Thrawn trilogy? Because everybody was hoping that that's where it was going, and then we got what we got, and everybody was
yeah.
disappointed for all kinds of reasons. You
Right.
know,
But
there's
what I mean is from a copyright standpoint. Let it go.
yeah,
Right. There's no reason for that J.K. Rowling just because somebody talks about a wizarding world. All right. That's loosely based on Harry Potter. I believe in keeping things you've established the canon. Okay, keep
hmm,
the canon. I'm a big person for canon. If you
yeah,
haven't guessed,
oh
right?
yeah,
I was very upset with the next generation because of the canon that they shit on. Okay, now that's not the only reason I was upset with the next generation, but the next generation had problems. All right,
hmm,
because of they blew up canon here and there. Now at least they tried to come back and explain away some of the mistakes they made.
yeah,
Okay, so I'll give them credit for that. All right, so I can kind of go begrudgingly accept some of that stuff, right? But they should have stuck closer to canon, in my opinion. Okay,
hmm,
I have no problem expanding into other alien races. Okay, and I realized the problem with it. The problem was money. Okay, when you put an alien up there with all it costs money, all right. Um, Putting together wharfs and putting together Klingons. That all costs money. Okay, it's easier to sit up there and put up Romulans compared to what you have to do to create a Klingon with the freaking ridges and everything else, right? Or or the Ferengi for that matter, right? I liked those new types of aliens around, right? the problems that I had with the Next Generation, and this is the problem I also had with the original series, was okay. You have the Empire, you have the Star Empires, the Romulans, the Klingons, and the Federation. The Federation has all these different aliens that show up here and there, right? You can't tell me that the Klingon Empire doesn't have aliens in it. There needed to be aliens as part of the Klingon Empire, right? Even if they were assholes like the Nausicaans that you showed up in the Federation, why not make the Nausicaans part of the Klingon Empire?
Yeah.
Show Nausicaans on the
Yeah. No,
and
it,
other aliens as part of the Romulan ships.
yeah. No, it's like, this whole change of trying to bring their message across, and it's just absolutely sickening because then, their whole thing is, well, everything is political. Okay, okay, but not in the way you think. Because, when you have established authors and with established series and franchises that have been established for decades,
Right.
they already have their own political motivations, their own political world, their own politics within that world, within that canon.
Within that
So,
base,
yes,
yes.
everything is political, but not everything is your politics.
Correct. Correct. And I
Okay.
thought that the next generation but overall I thought the next generation was okay. Okay.
Look,
To be
I didn't,
honest.
yeah. I couldn't, I went, we were staying with his sister at the time when STD came out, and I barely made it through
Oh.
the first half of the pilot. And I'm like, I can't keep watching this. This is shit. And I had friends that I considered intelligent, that I considered friends for decades on Facebook, sitting there saying how great STD was, and I'm like, STD is an STD. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, it's not that you couldn't have done things right, but you didn't. But they didn't do any of it right.
They
then
didn't. I
again,
mean,
then again, I hate Rian Johnson's when they redid Star Trek, the
yeah.
and they redid the Kirk characterization. I watched that one movie and I said it's shit, and I was never going to watch it again. And even with the admonishment from freaking Leonard Nimoy, right? You sit up there and said, "Well, there's no reason they had to stick to canon." Yeah, there is a reason to stick to canon.
The problem is when J.J. Abrams set
Okay.
out to make those Star Trek movies in his Abrams universe, in the interview where he said he had never watched a single episode or movie of Star Trek and never read any of the books, my brain went, "Uh-oh." That's because
Yeah,
that's a red fucking flag. I'm sorry, but it's as much of an asshole as he turned out to be. Will Joss Whedon proved with his Avengers movie that a fan of an IP can make a damn good and entertaining movie, and he did that
yeah,
with Avengers. Okay,
yeah. No,
yes,
you
Susan,
can't.
the Orville was more Star Trek than Star Trek.
I, I'm one of the few people who hated the Orville. I just did, right? I couldn't get into it,
Yeah.
right? Now, I'll be honest with you. The first season for Star Trek: The Next Generation, I had a difficult time. Okay, and that's because of Deanna Troy, the character
Oh
Deanna
God,
Troy.
my dad hated her. Oh, my dad
Oh
hated
yeah,
her. Every time she was on screen, Dad would go, "Captain, I feel a fart on deck 17."
I was like, can't we have a transporter accident?
Did, did you?
That's what I was.
Every time he saw her, he would. Every time he saw her, there was a different phrase. I feel a fart on deck 17. Captain, somebody's constipated on deck 5. Captain,
Oh God,
Dad. Every time he
I
goes, where did they come up with this bitch? With his question? Where did they
buy his
come up with this?
character. I'll be honest with you. I thought the things they did right.
Mhm.
I thought Beverly Crusher's character as the Doctor was awesome. Well
Yes.
written for the most part. They
Mhm.
and the actress, gosh, I can't. I'm vapor locking on her name right now. Right, did a very good job.
Mhm.
Right, I thought she did an outstanding job for that.
Mhm.
Right, no problem with that. They had opportunities with Geordie that they freaking left on the ground.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
Data they did Data overall they did Data right.
Mhm.
Okay, Picard was okay. Okay, I'm not the biggest fan of Picard, but the reality is that Picard in many ways was more of a type of captain you would see in these kind of situations,
Mhm.
with one exception, and that is he had to be harder. Okay,
Yeah, he had his moments. He had his
right?
moments.
He did, but he needed to be he needed to do less of the we got to turn him into more of a human type of character, and he needed to be more of a hard ass, not a badass, hard ass.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
for certain things,
Yeah. Riker they
right?
tried to make into a ladies' man.
Yeah, because they didn't want to give it to Picard because that had been Kirk's thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So they said, okay, we want the kind of ladies' man, but to be honest, he wasn't the person you should have turned into a ladies' man, right? To be honest, it would have been more fun if they'd have turned Geordi into the ladies' guy.
Yeah, I
All
agree.
right,
Yeah, it would have been a lot more
I
fun.
mean,
Yeah.
all right. I mean, and it would have fit a lot more within that characterization,
Yeah.
right? If it
Yep.
wasn't for the fact that she couldn't act, and that's the reality, all right. Uh, Crosby, I didn't mind it. She just couldn't act.
Yeah.
I would. Worf made a much better security chief. You have to
Yeah.
admit this.
And it
Okay.
Was Worf to me. Worf presented everybody with how it feels to be a fish out of water because he was literally a Klingon raised by humans and in the Federation. So
Yes.
it was something different. It was a different story to tell through a different character's eyes, and and how he struggled with that. But it was, I mean, that was Worf was pretty well done in my opinion. He was pretty well done. I like the way they did Data. Riker could have
Yeah.
been a little bit better. Picard to me was like the consummate Frenchman stuck on the deck of a starship being a captain. I'm sorry. That was the way because once they started fleshing out his character and you realize that he lived in France, I'm like, oh, so the stuck upness, that's where it comes from. Okay, I got you. I got you, boo. I got you. Deanna Troy, I wanted to gag and stick in a closet somewhere for the rest of the run of the franchise. Just forget she existed. Wesley, oh my fucking god, Wesley. I mean,
Okay.
when they started to shut up Wesley, I was so happy. Because the kid was just, I get it, kid. You're smart. You're precocious. You're a goddamn genius. Do you have to be so freaking obnoxious? Just, why did you
Well,
write him so obnoxiously? I'm just,
it,
ugh.
the obnoxious part would have been fine. The problem that I had with him was is he knew more about how the Enterprise was constructed than frickin' Geordi or done with.
He was condescending too. And for a kid his age
Right.
talking like that to people that were older than him, it was like, no, honey, you're talking to your elders that
Right.
way? Somebody should have smacked your ass.
There
I'm
had
sorry.
there had to be, and this is where the problem was. You had how many 1,000 something kids on this stupid freaking thing, or
Yeah.
like 500 kids or somewhere, whatever, however many kids they had on the thing, right? You had to have some more teenagers there, right? Why
Mhm.
couldn't you let him get his ass beat a few times by some of these other teenagers? Because that's what would have happened to
Yeah.
him,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
all right? Have him come in with a shiner one day over to mom. Mom, I got my ass kicked. What happened to you? Nothing. Do a few things like that. He would have been a more relatable character, right?
Right? Right? And oh, Q. Oh,
And,
don't get me started on Q. Mom and I have had discussions about Q. I think I'm the only person that I know that absolutely hated Q. I hated Q. I really hated him with a passion. He annoyed me to the point where I wished he wasn't a god so I could have shoved him out an airlock and watched him suffocate. Oh,
I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. The character Q, the character that John, how do you say his last name?
I don't know.
I know what it looks like, but I thought he did a perfect Q. I really
he,
did. I like the characterization of the
I
Q.
like how it was
All right.
written. I just really didn't like him.
Well, yeah, but he was meant to be unlikable, right?
Yeah.
You must have loved it when he got slugged by Cisco.
Oh my god,
Picard.
that was the best moment of my life in the Q arc. Especially when he looked at Cisco and went, "You hit me." Like, "Oh my god, you touched me." I'm like, "Yeah, bitch. He touched you."
Picard never hit me. I'm not
I'm like,
Picard.
"Can you
Right
just do
there, I knew
that
the DS9 was.
right?" My whole point that moment, and he said, "I'm not Picard." My brain went, "God damn it! This is the first run, so I can't rewind this and see it on a loop."
Yeah, there was there's problems with certain episodes, but there are if you're going to talk about the original series versus all the other ones, the first problem that the original series suffers from, quite frankly, is the fact that you don't have the special effects that you in the '60s that you have in the '90s,
Well, I mean, it's
right?
not only that. It's you have to watch. I'm a firm believer in watching things in the era in which they were created and understand the limitations of that time in order to fully, appreciate what you're watching. Okay?
Yes,
And that was also the time before every season had to have an overarching story. They were episodic. The
yes,
classic
yes,
Star
very much
Trek
so.
was episodic. It had a start, a middle, and a finish, and that was the end of the story for that episode. And the next week was a completely different story. There was no
And that made
overarching
the
theme.
writers.
What?
It made the because you
Mhm.
have a
Yeah,
story, an entire episode in a single
yeah,
line, and so in many ways it really made the writers better.
yeah,
Okay, and I'll be honest with you, there's certain episodes that other people absolutely hate in the original series that I think are really they don't get them. Okay, for example, the episode where they're on the guy with the disease wants to go to paradise and they end up going to the Romulans, the hippie
yeah.
episode.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, that episode was more in line for the time frame of what was going on.
Mhm.
Okay, when you were talking about keeping it within the time frame in which it was written, there's a lot more in nice because they don't live in that world, right? So they think the episode is shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that parts of it aren't shit, okay? But a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were trying to describe the generation of what was going on without really demeaning anyone.
They were trying to mirror what the climate was at the time without diminishing the message and making the message the main part of the story.
Right, but they were also perfectly describing, and people don't realize this, they were also perfectly describing who the hippies really were.
Mm,
These were not good people for the most part. Oh, there was one or two that weren't bad necessarily in and of themselves, but it was all an I, me movement.
yeah.
Okay, and that comes out, believe it or not, in that okay of who these guys were. They tried to kill everybody on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay, now there was the stupid, naive Bimbette, all right, who they, oh, no, we're just knocking them out. They'll be fine.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? But believe it or not, there were a lot of gullible people like that too. There
Yeah.
was that element of it as well.
Mhm.
Then you had the guy who was great. Believe it or not, was perfectly portrayed by Jerry Reed.
Mhm.
Right? Jerry Reed's character.
Yeah.
He perfectly portrayed how some of them actually were. Right?
Yeah.
He wasn't the leader, but he was willing to do whatever the leader told him, even though he knew we're wiping people out, and I'm doing it to put on I'm going to
Yeah.
be nice to people to trick them into this time period. We're all going to kill them, right?
Yeah.
No, they didn't come. Really, that's what he did,
Yeah.
right? He was manipulative of the situation. There were people like that in that movement. They were describing several aspects of how that movement was taking place in the 1970s, the early 1970s, the late 1960s,
Mhm.
right? Which is when this all came out, right? It's a phenomenally well written episode, and of course, like I said, everybody hates it. But a lot of what they hate actually, I think, has to do with the fact that you just don't have the special effects capabilities that you have later on.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
it's
Um,
what I would watch the first time I sat down with Paul and showed him. I think it was it was a horror movie back from the 70s. It was The Omen. Okay. And I told him, I said, before I press play, because I was always in the habit of this to, bring the point home. I said, Paul, this movie came out in this year. This was not available when this movie was made, and I'd go through all the special effects and everything he's used to seeing. I said, now that you know
mhm.
what's not going to be in the movie, we're going to watch the movie for what it is, and then you tell me what you think of the movie. And every time I did this at the end of the movie, we would talk about the storyline, we would talk about the effects and everything, and a lot of times he was like, well, how the heck did they do that? If they didn't have this, how'd they do that? That's and I would always tell them that's the beauty of practical effects. Practical effects makes you use your mind to try and figure out how you're going to get stuff done with what you have.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very true. And special effects, the problem with the special effects they have nowadays is there's so much mediocrity with it,
Hmm.
right? And in order to do it right, it's it's a work of tedium.
Yeah.
Okay, um, back in the original Star Wars, the in the Empire Strikes Back. In the Empire Strikes Back, there's a scene, right, where the Tie fighters, the where the Tie fighters are flying and the they're all coming together to have a big fight, right?
Hmm.
And George Lucas said that, right?
Hmm.
It took them 6 months for that 45-second clip.
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that going, my God.
It took them what, 5 years to do Snow White?
Yeah, it's. I don't think people understand what it took. Like what
Yeah.
true. If you're really going to be the tedium that goes into to making these things the way that they had to make them back in the
Yeah.
day, and even with computer graphics today, which can speed up some of that work,
Hmm.
all right. In order to do it right, you still got to spend an inordinate amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that this is that goes back to the question we were talking about earlier about animators and animation and things and AI
Hmm.
and so forth. But if you see the next generation, the problem that I have with the next generation, all right, part of it was like you said with Riker. Okay, they didn't know what to do with Riker, right? And I know, well, there are some people that think the Rikers, I shouldn't say that like that. Some people view Riker as their favorite character. I don't see how.
I don't know how either.
Right? I can see how people can like Picard. I can see how people love Data. All right, I can see how people like the Doctor Crusher. All right, I know why people like Deanna Troy. It has nothing to do with the story, right? But how can you enjoy Riker's character? Right now, the one thing they did right about Riker's character is they did do character development with him extensively
Hmm.
and overall successfully. Okay, overall it was successful. They talk about it in the thing, right?
Hmm.
Um, the, I don't have a problem with it from that standpoint. Now, some of the episodic storylines, right? Some of the storylines are phenomenal. The storyline where they talked about the one planet that was androgynous, but every now and then they would think about who they really were as far as man or woman,
Hmm.
right? That storyline, that
Yeah.
actually episode was actually done perfectly.
Yeah. Well, they had one. They had one in the Orville where there was a planet of nothing but males, and every time a female was, I think, hatched, they would kill it, or they would convert it into a male. One of the two. And it was supposed to deal with trans issues. And the way they touched on it and the way they wrote that episode was really really good because they didn't lean heavy on this world's politics on our time what was going on here, but they explain how in this, why it was supposed to be that way on their planet and why they couldn't have any females on the planet, which I thought was a very good way to, touch a very sore or sensitive subject for many people. And there was a lot of really good writing in that show in the first season. I think I started watching the second season and then started doing. So that happens to me. I get busy and then never finish
Yeah, you
watching
lose
shit.
track. You
Yeah,
lose track of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's like I have this long ass list of anime, and I have anime written in brackets, which reminds me that I've never finished watching this shit. So it's like, like I know I got to go back
Well,
and do these things, but I got other shit I have to do.
the,
It's
the
not the
problem with
fact
most,
it's not the fact nowadays as to, some things that people feel need to be addressed. It's how they address it in the media that is presented.
yeah,
It's
there,
ham-fisted and it's not written very well.
yeah, the problem with most anime, right, is the authors very rarely know how to finish it. Okay, there are exceptions, right? They finished Cowboy Bebop correctly.
Mhm.
Well, I shouldn't say correctly. Well, right.
Yeah.
Correctly would have been doing it my way, which may or may not have been everybody else's cup of tea, but whatever, right? I thought they did a great job with it
Yeah.
overall,
They finished
right?
it with the movie. Yeah.
Um, all right. But it has a definitive end,
Yeah.
okay, which is okay. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, you have to be able to finish it. Other ones they just drag out and drag out and drag out and drag out, and they just never freaking end.
Well, to me, it's because when I started watching anime and then I started learning about the manga that the anime was tied to, it all depends on the company that the mangaka write for. Shonen literally tells the artist that came up with the manga how they want the manga to go. They don't give the mangaka creative license to write the story they want to write. The original ending to Bleach in the anime was not the ending the mangaka wanted. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of arcs that happened that he didn't want happen. That was not the story he wanted to tell. But yeah, in the case of Naruto Shippuden, with I always called it the infinite Filoromi. You, yeah, there's a website. I forgot the name of the website where it's color coded. If you want to watch the actual Shippuden, it's this color. If you want to watch all the filler, it's this color. And I'm like, okay, so I'll watch this and then maybe go back and watch the filler. But I mean, you have problems in with manga and anime is that you get filler because the anime has caught up to the manga and they're waiting for more manga to come
Oh yeah,
out. So you have all this filler. Now, there's one anime out there that we tripped over that I absolutely love that's called The Ancient Magus Bride. It's kind of like a fantasy slice of life kind of thing. It's a really nice story. I'm waiting for season 2, and the reason say I'm waiting is because the mangaka, who's female, made it a stipulation to the anime company that she did not want any filler if they were going to turn it into an anime, that they were going to have to wait till she finished the next run of her manga in order to turn it into an anime because she did not want any filler.
yeah. I tend to read the mangas before I read or I watch the movie, the shows, right? Um, and I know the one you're talking about because I started reading that manga, but I got bored with it because I'm like, oh man.
Matt,
The
One
problem
Piece.
that I had,
Mm-mm. I tried. I
what?
tried. I was 5 episodes, maybe 3 episodes into One Piece. Looked at my nephew and went, "So when are you actually supposed to get hooked to this stupid thing?" And he goes, "Oh, around episode 32." Oh, I'm done. I'm
Oh no,
sorry.
no,
I
no! I
ain't got
got
time to wait for 32 damn episodes for my brain to finally go, "Oh, this is getting good."
no the I thought of all the ones with One Piece, right? They
Mhm.
did. There are parts that are slow. I'm not going to deny that, right? Especially the beginning episodes are somewhat slow, all right. But they quickly get you once they get the first big three in. okay, they're good. It does take too long to get Sanji on board, right? Who's the cook? Okay, and it does take too the episode where they bring in Usopp is too long. Okay, but once they got the three characters in there with with the beginning arcs, it gets good there, and that's not 30 in. That's only about it's only about 5 in or 10 in, right? Where you get that, right?
Hmm.
Where you introduce certain characters that are going to come up and become recurring characters that you're curious about.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it isn't quite that bad. All right, the manga for that, but they have no way of ending this either. That's why One Piece has never freaking ended. All right.
Yeah, I'm
There's
looking at
no way
Matt
to.
going, yeah, there's like 1,000 episodes. I'm like, oh, I'm not ready to commit to that right now.
Yeah, there's. They in order because it's supposed to be an ongoing storyline, they took too long to do certain things, and you kind of need it for the background. But the problem is, it starts to become too repetitive, right? Because the
Yeah.
stories are going to become repetitive over time,
Hmm.
right? That's just the way it is, and so you get into it where I think when they got to what they did the right thing in that they did the anime up to the point where they got to um, the break where you have a 2 year break between the characters,
Hmm.
right? And they let it sit there for a while, and it made you want to see what they were going to come right. And
Yeah.
overall, I thought they did a decent job, with the exception of one character, and that is Nico Robin. All right, they need to flesh out Nico Robin correctly, and I just don't think that the way that they're doing it is good. Okay,
Yeah.
of all the characters that I like, but I don't like what they're doing with the character. It's Nico Robin, right? When they introduce Nico Robin into the character stream, the way they do it, phenomenal. Right? It really was. It really was done well, right? Because he starts off as the bad guy,
Yeah.
right? Just basically doing her own thing, right? And having, but she's the bad guy who's there to have fun. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hmm.
All right. And her story arc is interesting from the past. They give her a past. They develop her story from the past and everything else. That's cool too. But it's her development later on that I think is lacking, in my opinion. Right. But again, I've seen a lot of the One Piece episodes. I had caught up to it was after the Don Flamingo arc that they did that I just said, okay, that's enough. Look, you got to end this story, and you've got to go through all these different warlords yet. You got to do all these different things. My God, when's this ever going to end? Okay, but I didn't make it to that point, right? I mean, and it's like some of the characters they have are fascinating. I really wish they would have. The one thing about Don Flamingo's character is they should have had his character always showing up, but he should be the final. He should be like one of the final villains. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He was too good of a villain to ditch so soon. All right, because they're basically midway when they ditch him, right? They really needed to keep him on longer, right? They really did, but that's good villains are hard to find.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
a great villain.
Yeah. I was like, wait, wait, we were talking about this on another. I was like on Rogue and Panina stream and stuff earlier, and we got to talking about comparing different anime and stuff. And I'm like, well, the one thing that you can't compare, it's like out of all the different anime out there, you really can't compare a shonen to a shonen because the formula is the same. Basically, weak kid, get stronger, beat boss. Stronger boss, get stronger, beat stronger boss. I mean, that's that's the shonen equation. That's how shonen jump is done. So, you see that and you're like, okay, you know what you're in for. It's just the characters are different all the time.
That's true.
And I may make some people mad out there, but the best part about Bleach isn't Ichigo, it's everybody else that grows around him. Because Ichigo already has a very giving and helpful and generous soul, so there's really nowhere for him to go character wise
Yeah.
except get stronger. That's it. So
Well,
it
and they did Tatsuki wrong. She should have been a more important character that grew with them. She should have
hmm
come along with them,
yeah,
right? With the main character, she should have been
yeah.
included in the group,
Yeah,
right?
and you have oh god damn it, Orihime that everybody thinks is the most annoying character in the show, or everybody that I bumped into to this point, and I'm like, you guys really don't understand her character. She's very meek. She's happy, even though she leads a pretty depressing life. Let's not lie. And she can be, if she wanted to be, the most powerful person in
Yes,
the
she's
anime,
OP.
except she doesn't have a murderous bone in her body. When you have the ability to reject reality itself, I'm sorry, you're the strongest person in the show.
Well, when you can sit up there, she literally can bring people back to life, kill them, bring them back to life, torture them,
Mhm.
bring them back to life, bring back parts of their body, bring them back to
Yeah.
life.
But I mean,
She has
the reason she doesn't do that is because she has a kind heart and not a single murderous bone in her body, which is
no, no,
why she never reached her full potential.
right, but that's they should have developed her slightly differently. Right?
Mhm.
That's my now that could just be the difference between cultures too, and how it's transcribed in you know to a Western culture from
Yeah.
Japanese culture. So that's what I
Yeah.
put that down to.
I
Right,
mean, to me,
but
you can be.
Tatsuki, her friend Tatsuki should
Oh
have,
my
who
god,
was
she was a
also
badass.
Ichigo's friend,
Yeah.
she should have been brought into this whole thing, and
Yeah,
she
she was a
should have been
badass.
because she could also had she also had that kind of what they call spiritual awareness to start with,
Mhm.
right? And they should have developed her along those lines. And
Yeah.
it's really one of the ones that I disagreed with that they didn't bring
Mhm.
in as a characterization. You didn't need to bring in Cone, although I like Cone's character. You didn't need to bring him in. If I had to sacrifice Cone for Tatsuki, I would have done that.
Yeah,
Right.
me too. And I'm
All
still
right.
trying to figure out how the fuck Chad immigrated into a Japanese society. It's a one Hispanic person in the middle of a Japanese country. What the hell?
Well, he does the right thing.
I
He's
mean,
quiet.
but I mean, he does. But I mean, it's funny because it's like you have all these people, and then Chad. I mean, you can see him. He's the tallest person in the room. He's Chad. He's there. You can't miss him. It's
The wall.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very true. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's like I said, there are certain things they did a decent job. They could have ended. They should have left the ending with with Bleach when they did it. Right.
Yeah,
Like I said, I would have changed certain things, but overall. They should have just left it in the one ending that they had, where they took away his powers, and that should have been the
yeah,
end of it.
yeah. That should have been.
Okay,
That should have been.
all right, and you could have written spin-offs of the other characters if you
Mhm.
wanted to, right? Um, which would have been interesting. How you interrelay that with Ichigo without powers, which would have been fine as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
Right.
Poor Shrapnel. He's having an argument with text to voice to text. Poor baby.
So
Sorry.
anyway, before we get into more of that, we actually should set up a series where we talk about very specific acts, but
Yeah.
arcs of the different series in our opinions of them. All
Mhm.
right. More in depth and so forth from an episodic. I don't watch as like I said, I don't watch as much anime as I read manga.
Yeah.
Right. There's a new one out there about the reincarnation of a slime.
Oh, I've started watching that anime. I gotta look at the manga.
The manga I've read, all right, and I still read that, all right, which is far more interesting to me,
well,
right?
to me, it's like I'm on the sites more often than not. They're anime sites. So I saw that, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and my brain went, "What the fuck?" Okay, we got to see this. Click, because that's the way my brain works. Like, okay, this is the weird ass fucking title. Let's give it a shot. What the hell? Like,
I can't. There's no way to do the first five mangas correctly in anime. There's too more because of the interpolation in is so in depth. All right,
yeah,
in the first five, where you're doing because that's all set up,
yeah,
right? But it's set up as this character of how he starts to do things, right, and how he's
yeah,
learning, right? Because you know, and of course there's interplay in there. For example, if a slight spoiler if you haven't seen the first episode, right? And the guy dies because he gets stabbed saving his coworker and her his fiance slash girlfriend, whatever.
Oh, I got up
Right?
to the dragon. I don't know which episode that was.
Okay.
I got up to him
Um,
meeting the dragon.
so, but I don't know what they did in the anime per se, but he has a whole interplay where he's this guy is introducing him to his fiance, right?
Mhm.
But the reason he's doing it, even though he's his friend, is to rub his nose in the back, right?
Yeah.
And then when he takes the knife for his friend,
Mhm.
right? His friend's all upset and everything, and is actually apologizing to him that this all happened because I wanted to show off to you and everything else. And he tells him, destroy destroy my computer hard drive.
Wow. Yep.
Is the last words, right? And I don't know if that's in the anime or not.
It
But I was
is.
just like that
It
whole
is.
interplay there.
It
He
is.
talks about that, and then of course he wakes up, blank panels with just bubbles of what he's thinking as he's starting to learn to become a slime,
Yep. Oh, hang
right?
on just a second. Little butt needs to go out, so I gotta let her out to go pee. I'll be back.
So I mean these are things that are hard to the written stuff, of course, even back to the movies. When you when you watch a movie and then you read the book that's based upon, so many times there's so much lacking in it, and it has to do with the fact that there's so much more in the book that you can describe very quickly, all right, of things that become missing, okay, in in the movies themselves, in the movie adaptations, and it doesn't really matter what it is. If you go back to the 1970s, there's a book called The Andromeda Strain. It was turned into a movie in I think it was the mid to late 70s. Um, if you read the book and then you watch the movie, it's almost like it's two separate things. All right, Jurassic Park, which is also written by Michael Crichton, watching the movie versus reading the book, completely different. Right? I mean, the movie especially because in the movie, different people survive and different people die. All right, than what's in the book. Okay, and the characterizations of these people, okay, are not well shown, right, in the movies, right, and it has to do with in the certain characters and certain actors become different. You get a different feel for them. Jeff Goldblum's character in Jurassic Park is completely different than the book. Although they do try to keep it in line with things, you can't flesh out his character that well. Okay, uh, it's hard to do. It's hard to have a book, and and quite frankly, um, if you want to know a book adaptation that they did a really good job of actually adapting the book to more or less was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That first movie did track with the book far more closely than many of the other movies in the books
Yeah,
as they came to.
yes, I agree. And I think when it got to the Order of the Phoenix, they took the boring parts of the fucking book and stuck it in the movie. Because that was the slowest of all the damn movies. I'm sorry, it was.
uh, you couldn't do certain things in that the Order of the Phoenix. I'm sorry, you just couldn't do the. They just couldn't do it justice. All right, and like I said, the Order of the Phoenix is not one of the storylines that the book itself I felt was a slaw.
My whole
Right.
thing was about the whole series in the movie wise was I would have waited and I would have sat through an extra 5-10 minutes if they would have just shown why Neville hated Bellatrix Lestrange so bad for the people that hadn't read the books.
Yes.
Because That was a very poignant part of the book that I feel needed to be in the movie to tell the story of Neville and why Neville was the way he was.
Well, I agree, and and unfortunately, and I hate to say this, right? In the movies, they couldn't do justice to Bellatrix's character. All right, Bellatrix is is someone who's a psychopathic sadist. All right, and you have to understand she it's not that she can't throw death curses like avacadabra, right? But that isn't her favorite. She enjoys torturing people. She enjoys torturing things. She likes to see people suffering and gets off on it.
Yep.
Okay? And they don't really show that in the movies.
Mm-mm.
All right? They don't show the fact that this is not someone who's following Voldemort, all right, because she's a believer in Voldemort as the anti-hero, or she wants to get ahead because she's overly ambitious, like Lucius Malfoy is, right, and sees him as a way to power, right?
Lucius Malfoy was
She,
an ass kisser.
well, yeah, but that's what he is, all right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's that, you can understand that, right?
Yeah.
But Bellatrix isn't for any reason than that Voldemort lets her do what she wants. Seriously, she doesn't care about Voldemort one way or the other. She doesn't think of Voldemort as a hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a part of her nature. Okay, she just knows that Voldemort won't stop her from torturing people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All right. It's more of a it's really more of an you know professional relationship, right? You let me do what I want. If you need me to help you with something, and I get to do what I want, great. I'll do it, right? But if she was ever told don't do this, and Voldemort told her don't do this, she would just ignore it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So you gotta from the books you don't get that you get that from the books, but you don't get that from the movie.
Yeah. I'll say
What
when
what
it
what,
comes
what,
to movie adaptations and from books that I have read, because there's a lot of movies out there that I know have books that I have not read yet. So, you know, I look for key things in the movies to see if they've been put in the movie or not, as to whether or not I'm satisfied with the adaptation, because there's never really going to be a perfect adaptation from the book to the movie unless you make like 3 movies for one book to make sure you have all the backstory in there.
That's
Okay.
true.
But there's certain key things like during the everybody bitches about Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson kept the spirit of the Lord of the Rings. He kept the spirit of it. There were a lot
Yes.
of points in there. He hit a lot of beats that I felt needed to be hit. Yes, he did embellish things and put things in there that didn't need to be in there. Don't get me started on Legolas sliding down the fucking Oliphant, because that's goddamn ridiculous. It was cool, but it was ridiculous. You know, acknowledge it for what it is. It was ridiculous. Moving on. But there were things that I looked for in the movies, and then there were things that I saw in the movie that I was like, okay, I don't know why you did this. Like swapping out Glorfindel for for what's her face. Um, oh yay, there goes the brain. Not Eowyn, Arwen,
Right. Arwen. Yeah.
because it was Glorfindel that saved Frodo from the Nine
Yes.
to bring him into Rivendell, not Arwen. Okay,
Right.
that was a major change that I didn't particularly like. And then there was the whole thing in The Hobbit where they did the love triangle with the she-elf bitch, and then they put in Legolas. I'm
Yeah.
like, look, that wasn't in the books. Can we not put stuff in the books that weren't in the books? Just
Yeah.
leave it. If it wasn't in the book, leave it out of the movie. Come on. Is it
The
really
other
that hard?
problem the problem that I had with the Lord of the Rings was my some of my favorite characters were the Ents, and they did the Treants wrong. Okay, now I realize why. I understand why they had to do what they did, right? But they did them a disservice.
Yeah.
All right, they did Saruman a disservice. All
Mm.
right, Saruman better. All right,
Yeah.
let me put it that way. All right, especially his and Wormtongue's relationship should have been explained a lot more.
Hmm.
All right, that could have been done a little bit better, in my opinion. But once again, that you have a time constraints, I understand all that. But they really did not do the Ents correctly.
And they did marry.
Okay,
They did marry dirty.
yeah, they did. All right,
Mary was okay. Mary was curious. Mary was often the cat in the scenario, but Mary wasn't curious to the point of ridiculousness.
correct.
Okay, and they put that over the edge. Yes, he dropped something down the well. Yes, the line was said that I was waiting for. Fool of a took, throw yourself in next time. But all the other shit that he was doing was not. That wasn't. I don't know who the fuck that was. That wasn't Mary.
No, no, I agree. But one of the problems with adapting the books to the movie to even begin with is there's so much setup that has to happen in order for movement to take place.
Hmm.
All right, and that's just the way Tolkien wrote it. Okay, it's hard to bring that out. I thought they did the whole when they went through the tunnel, the king going through the tunnel with the shadows. Remember,
Hmm.
that was not done well.
No.
And the reason was, quite frankly, is you couldn't do it. I mean, the amount of time, the amount of real animation you would have had to apply there that would have worked.
Well,
Well,
there were several
that movie
reasons.
alone would have been like 6 hours.
There were several reasons it wasn't done well, and there were several different character changes that they did that I didn't particularly like. First of all, they did marry dirty, and Gimli is not fucking comic relief.
No, you're right.
I mean,
You're right
every
about
time
that.
they put him in a damn scene, it had to be some sort. Oh, the short guy's funny. No, what the hell? Why'd you do that to Gimli? He didn't need to be written that way.
No, he didn't. But the problem, of course, comes down to with the how do you truly show what a dwarf can do? Okay, you want to know the truth of the matter. If you put a dwarf with an axe, right, their movement capabilities should be damn near, okay, what you see Yoda do. All right,
Well, I
when
mean,
he's
it's like.
jumping around with the lightsaber. That's really what they've got to be capable of.
The only thing that was accurate with Gimli and Legolas was whenever they got into a battle. Excuse me, I burped. Whenever they got into a battle, they did in the movies what was done in the book. They were doing their body count
Yes,
competition, which
they're,
I
they're doing their
absolutely
competition.
loved
Yes,
because in the end, Gimli learned to respect Legolas not because Legolas was an elf, but because Legolas could match him in combat and he was a comrade at that point. Didn't matter
right.
what his race was, you have earned my respect. You are my friend. Period. Everything else up until that point is inconsequential. You have proven to me that you can hold yourself in battle. You're my friend. Which part of their culture. Can you kick ass? Okay. Can you? I mean, because he's already proven that he could, drink just about everybody under the. Which elves can do. They just don't do it. Elves can drink a hell of a fucking lot.
Well, yeah,
You know. I
yeah.
mean,
No, no, you're right.
elves can party. I mean, come on. They can party. But the one thing that he had never seen was, how are they in combat? Because remember, this was after the schism between the elves and the dwarves because the dwarves dug too deep and woke up the Balrog.
Well, it wasn't just that. The fact is that after the rings were distributed to the dwarves under the mountain, their changes were such that the elves could no longer tolerate them. All right, as far as they knew that they were there, but they were they the rings, as you know, corrupt. Okay, and the way they corrupted the dwarves was to make them
Greedy.
right. Well, yeah, but it's a paranoia type of greed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, where everyone's out to get my gold. It's not just that I have to find gold. It's that once I
Yeah.
find it, now I got to hoard it.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't that, oh, I found this gold and I'm gonna no, it's not just the mine character like the Daffy Duck
Yeah.
and the Jack and the Beanstalk. All right, it's not just that type. It's the fact that they think everyone else is trying to out to get them too. Right, once they get the hoard, then everyone's out to get it. Right.
Which they depicted really good in The Hobbit after they got back to the mountain.
Yes, they did. I will admit that. Yeah, they did that part of it right, but that's one of the reasons why you see the fallout with the dwarves
Mm-hmm.
from the elves, right? And of course, the elves are also having to deal with the fact that humans are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of, but the one thing that I thought that they did a good job was is that the elves, as a result, tried to play the game of, okay, we're going to become isolationist, and they pulled themselves back. And there
Mm-hmm.
were natural allies that they could have still been in contact with, which was the Ents being one of them,
Yeah.
right? And that's why, like I said, when you read the book, some of my favorite characters are not used the right,
Mm-hmm.
but you a whole movie on the Ents, to be honest,
Yeah. I mean,
right?
it was
Especially the
the way they did the ends. It's like they truncated it for time. Because to me,
yes,
if he wanted to do it right, he probably could have drug it out, and he probably could have done two movies for the Fellowship, two movies for the Two
yes,
Towers, and one movie for Return of the King, because Return of the King was the thinnest one of all three parts.
yes, I agree.
Okay, so
Well,
because I'm
but it's
sorry,
also the one with all the movement.
yeah, I miss Tom Bombadil.
Yes,
He needed to be in the Fellowship part of the trilogy, and he wasn't there. He was, a lot of people would say, well, the movie would have been the same without him. No, they would have never made it out of the Barrow Downs without him.
exactly.
Okay, the main reason that I like Tom Bombadil is because he is older than the world and the established lore, and he's been around for eternity, and he cares about people, and he's just a really happy guy. you know, he's just a really happy guy. It doesn't matter if he's kicking ass or offering you wine; he's doing it
He,
with a
ha-
smile on his
he
face.
hasn't been jaded by the rest of the world's
Yeah.
antics. Yeah, unfortunately, it is now finally getting late. I'm sure it's very late for you. It's over past 10 already, right?
Well, a little
uh,
past 10.
right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. I hope that everybody had a good time, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.